ideology to dismantle those things. Oops, I'm sorry. Hi, live. Everyone's live. Hey, how's it going? I was just giving my definition of what woke means.
Yes, please start.
And to me, it's when you use a usually a scholarly based ideological framework to dismantle the existing social systems in society, such as Christianity, white supremacy, cis heteronormativity, patriarchy, that sort of thing. And if you're trying to tackle them separate from an ideological structure, then that's different. But if you're trying to just use it's a very God, what is it? What's the word for when you can guess something easily?
Intuit.
Anyway, yeah, it's easily guessable what it's a cliche. It's when it becomes a cliche, and so to me, that's what woke is.
And then I always figured it was just when you decide to not be a dick to someone on the basis of whatever demographic they inhabit, like you're consciously saying, I'm not going to be a wank in their direction, and also kind of giving some crap to the people who decide to be. I mean, that's my simple homespun version.
There seems to be lots of definitions which comes to the conclusion that was said earlier. It's probably that word has probably already used up. It probably no longer works anymore because so many people have so many definitions of it.
Well, sure. That and so many people, they hear it and they turn their nose up at it and sneer.
Michael's in progress there. What's your definition?
I really don't have a good working definition for woke. It seems to be the opposite of red pilled. That would be woke. I mean, right. It's tough to define things in terms of their opposite, but anything that they don't like that you could be doing, if they are a red pilled person, that makes you woke.
But isn't red pill its own version of being woke?
Yes. Yes, right. It's kind of on the opposite side. Yes.
So woke is basically just being aware of the systems and the processes around you that keep certain people down. It's like, wake up, sheeple, right? Well, if you've been woken up, you're woke, and you can see who your oppressors are.
Right, and that's pretty damn close to what I was going to say. I mean, to me, it just means that you're paying attention, and you can see things, and you see the problems for what they are, and you don't need to what's the word? Use exceptionalism to try and explain away the uncomfortable things about history or even modern society. Because you can see the problems, and maybe you don't know the solutions, but you can certainly see how we got here and what the problems are. My favorite speech in the world is by Martin Luther King, and it's called "Why I Oppose the War in Vietnam." And in it, he identifies like structural problems that exist, and all those problems that existed in 1968 still exist now. Militarism, economic exploitation, and I fucking forgot the third one right off the top of my head. But there's three of them anyway, and we haven't solved the damn thing when it comes to that stuff. We've got more stuff, we've got like shit like this, and this internet that we're all talking on, and we take for granted because we've had it so long now. We got more stuff, but the problems, we still got those too.
So when someone goes out of their way or puts themselves out there to define what woke is, they get discredited. The word woke becomes weaponized and twisted, or did you shoot a motherfucker? Martin Luther King.
Well, I do a little bit think, though, that, phones and the internet and all of that will make it a little bit more difficult for things like fascism to ultimately take root, because the information is more readily accessible. It's more easily found. Granted, it also lets those people gather as well. But I think it's harder to pull the wool over people when they're not as isolated informationally.
You
Okay,
give
but-
too much credit.
But what do you do if there's a question that you don't know the answer to and you want to look it up on the internet? You Google it, right? Even if you're not looking on Google, that's the phrase we use. It's in the dictionary for that exact
Okay.
thing. We look it up on the internet. We call it Googling it. And bottom line is, most people will Google it, and Google therefore has just more power than because if you control information, you can control history, you can control what people absorb, and you wouldn't even know the difference because you're taking the internet and what's on it as an authoritative source.
Well, wait a minute.
Well,
I
and
don't
also-
agree with that at all, because if I Google it, I will look at multiple sources. There have
Yes,
been times that,
know.
sometimes I've sought out an expert. Like, hell, when I had an astrophysics question, I actually talked personally to Lawrence Krauss about it. So it's not like I just take the first thing I see for granted.
Well, that's good.
Another thing that comes into when you Google something, if you're logged in, you will get different results eventually than other people because the results are personalized. So sometimes you get stuck in information bubbles as a result because they think you want this information this way, so that's what they give to you, even though you're actually looking for something contrary.
Yeah, as crazy as I can put my own spin on the stuff I read, I don't like it when a third party is putting the spin on it. I can do that.
Raven, didn't us woke people? Didn't we cancel Lawrence Krauss
I
as
think
woke
so.
people? That was
I
like,
think so.
yeah, that was the
He
thing.
got
Well,
touchy feely. Didn't he get
I
touchy
still
feely with somebody at a
trust
convention?
what he says about astrophysics, but whatever.
I think he got touchy feely.
He did, but
Yeah, if you get
still,
touchy feely with someone at a convention, can we trust your astrophysics knowledge?
I can't tell if you're being tongue in cheek.
I don't like so much of that. Here's the thing: is everybody always thinks, and I'm not saying anybody here necessarily, just kind of in general. Everybody always thinks everybody's on board with all that stuff, and it's just like, I don't know. I mean, J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit, but I'll watch Harry Potter. I've got a couple Harry Potter books. It drives me crazy. I see all this stuff. It's just like, if you ever even look at anything Harry Potter related, you hate trans people and need to burn in hell. You're evil. That drives me nuts. Shut up.
I mean, I'll pirate her books.
There you go.
It's power.
It's crazy, right? So Lawrence Krauss got touchy feely with somebody, but he's still an astrophysicist. I mean,
Yeah.
his science has nothing to do with him being touchy feely, and vice versa. I mean, it's just, I don't know.
What you were saying earlier about the whole weaponization of the word woke. I mean, whatever the next word, I mean, like I say, 3 or 4 years ago, it was SJW. And what's it going to be in 2 or 3 years from now? It'll just be something else, And it's just, to me, it's this big broken record. It's a tribal thing as well,
One of the weaponized word right now is women's sports. But, I don't know.
I don't know. It's
And
weird.
then
Like I have enough trans friends on Twitter that I end up getting involved in a lot of the arguments about it. And like I'm finding how much more wildly transphobic people in the UK have gotten, and their insistence on calling every trans woman a man. And I'm just like, wow, I would have thought the US would be so much worse.
It's kind of surprising to me out of the UK because I didn't realize it had swung that far, basically.
Oh gosh.
People
Sorry, someone said something that activated something else that thinks it's Alexa. Never mind. One of my devices goes nuts sometimes.
Siri, divide by 0.
Okay, Google.
Right. No, believe it or not, it's actually my little robot companion, Vector.
Oh, hey, Vector.
Oh, stop that. That's exactly what he responds to.
So, I mean, I have a trans friend who tweeted the other day about being a female with a dick. And I was just like, I didn't say nothing, but I was thinking, no, you're not. You're not a female. You're a girl, you're a woman, yeah. But female is a scientific word that means a very specific thing. It's like in like 100 years after I die, they find my body and they test it. They're going to say, "Oh, male," because I'm a male. That's just reality. That's you know. But my God, there are certain circles you can't even say that because people freak out.
Well, I mean, this is a tangent from what we were talking about how people have definitions and how those definitions differ. You know what I mean? And there's this big battle right now for who's right, which definition prevails.
Well, it's clear in the UK, at least, that they're trying to find the definition that's the most, well, not dehumanizing, but I guess delegitimizing.
For which, though? Which word? For woman?
No, they're trying to delegitimize trans people. They're
Well,
trying to find the terms that will disenfranchise them the most or whatever.
I've seen a lot of really horrible things about trans men lately. Zipper tits is one that I've seen like 1,000 times within just the last couple of days. It's just absolutely disgusting. It's leave people alone. What the hell?
I think the worst thing in all of these debates are the people who are determined to misunderstand and villainize you.
Yeah.
You know, or it's like you try to explain your position to them, and you're clearly saying, look, it's not about fill in the blank. You know, but they insist that it's got to be about fill in the blank because they can use that to demonize you. And it's very frustrating because it's like it doesn't matter what you say at that point. They're just going to make you the villain of the story no matter what.
Well, that's because they're not arguing honestly at all. You know, it literally is a game.
But the problem is I've been seeing it also on both sides. And that's the part that frustrates me the most is that I would have thought that like we on the left or we on the progressive side would at least be honest enough, critical thinking enough to hear someone out, but apparently not.
I'm sorry, did you say something?
No. Nothing worth hearing anyway.
Huh?
No, I mean, I think that's always been a criticism about progressives. You know, they get holier than thou or whatever. You know, but that's understandable because as Stephen Colbert used to say in Character back in the day, you know, reality has a well-known left-wing bias. You know,
It's true though.
it is true. You know, I mean, and it's only unfortunate because the people on the other side, it's not just that they have political disagreements about policy so much as they really do seem to have this program about ending democracy, and they're proud of it. They don't even disguise it anymore. It's not like they're pretending. It's like they want to use democracy to end democracy. Any of them that get elected those ones are going to call their election legitimate, and any of them that don't get elected are all going to challenge their results simultaneously and just try to fuck the whole system up.
I think when we start, go ahead.
Oh, well, there's this one commentator that I see on like Right Wing Watch and stuff a lot where I'm trying to remember his name. And is
Nick Fuentes?
Maybe. I don't remember exactly. But he actually said recently that what we need to do is to elect a Republican and then stop having elections.
Yeah, that's Nick Fuentes. Yeah.
Oh, that guy's a schmuck. I mean,
well,
like,
honestly,
he's scary.
I'm almost a free speech absolutist, and that guy makes me go, Jesus Christ, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You want someone to shut him up because he's dangerous. I mean, he literally is dangerous. You know?
When we start arguing the definitions of words or when what something means, you can no longer rely on it as a society. That becomes scary.
Well, I mean, Nick Fuentes is an example. He's the kind of person who will argue passionately that there's nothing wrong with being racist. And I mean, I don't even know what to fucking do with that because, of course, you really have to educate someone from 3 to know. In terms of how can they even think that? I know I'm just too far gone, I guess, the other way. It's just, to me, it's so obvious that I just can't see how anybody thinks racism could be a good thing or a natural thing or something that shouldn't be shameful. Do you know what I mean?
I had, I'll call it a debate, but it was really an argument with someone where we differed on what certain terms meant. And so I said, look, here's the concept I'm trying to describe. What word will you accept that will mean that to you so that I can have a consistent discussion with you? They would not give me a word. Would not say, okay, fine, for the purposes of this discussion, this word means that definition.
Right,
And I was like, but I'll keep tripping over your refusal to believe that a certain word means something.
Concept.
Well,
They reject the concept. Therefore, there is no word that's going to be applicable.
Right.
Well, some people just they know that what you're trying to say, and they won't tell you they're purposely doing it, but they're purposely trying to avoid you having that point.
I do that
to
to
believe
kids
that
all the
anyone
time.
watching that conversation saw them doing that and said, wow, this person's an intractable schmuck.
No, I do that to Kazum all the time.
That's pretty funny. Kate, when you said intractable schmuck, it makes me jealous because schmuck is never a word that comes to my mind to use, but it's a great one to use.
I was raised by a Jewish mother.
Right.
I mean, granted, only culturally Jewish, but a lot of that Yiddish slang did work its way into my vocabulary.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, suddenly grumpy old men comes into my head, and I think of putts.
I heard putts. I heard schmendrick. I heard, seriously, a lot of them.
I don't even know what that
Feel
one means,
attacked.
but I like the sound of it.
Feel
Well,
attacked.
and of course, on the other side, I had an Italian father, so I heard a fair amount of, hey, what's the matter, you? That came up a lot. So, yeah. It's dinner time. Manja, manja. I heard that all the time, too. I don't know.
Hey, Michael, do you know where your heritage comes from?
I've done the genetic test to see through Ancestry.com.
Oh, yeah. And where did you come from? Your ancestry?
Mostly the UK.
Mostly UK.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Like
I did
9%
23andMe. Oh, go on. Thought you were done. Okay, I did 23andMe, and it sort of disagreed a little bit with what the adoption agency told me, because the adoption agency said that I'm Italian, Cherokee, French, and African, but 23andMe basically said, okay, 33% Ashkenazi Jewish, 30% African, 30% Italian, and then the rest is everything except East Asian.
Right.
So I don't know what to believe at this point. But I did have someone looking for my birth mother, and, well, I definitely believe the African part.
I still need to get one of those things done. It doesn't cost like $150 or something like that.
Kazum, how far back do you know, just from obviously you must know all 4 grandparents, right? Do you know any about your great grandparents?
Not really. I'm my grandmother on my mother's side was full-blown Russian.
Right.
So I know that. And then everything else, to my knowledge, is assorted European. So,
Right. Fair enough. Yeah.
but
Yeah,
there might be something else mixed in there that we don't know about. So,
yeah, I'm mostly UK and Danish with a smattering of German in there. So that's pretty much me, Northern Europe. What about you, Raven? Do you have any knowledge past grandparents backwards?
Oh, I'm a direct descendant of the White Rose.
That's a plant.
No, actually, it's Richard of York.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm mostly British.
Right.
a lot of Northern European and a little bit of Italian.
Right. Getting back to changing the subject off genealogy and back to our discussion about different definitions, I want to bring this comment up from Marcus. Clinton question is, when Clinton was impeached, he said, it depends on what the definition of is, which was like a humiliating moment to watch that on TV. But then Trump questions crime, guilty, very fine people, etc. Sam Harris said Trump monetized the denigration of our institutions, and that's definitely true as well. But this is a good point. I mean, Trump is basically saying, I'm not a criminal because, I'm Trump. I mean, that's literally basically what it boils down to now,
Well, you can declassify documents by thinking about it.
I think it will be interesting to see what happens if Trump is indicted. I imagine there probably would be some form of rioting and such, but then I think what would happen from there is they would all vote for DeSantis to get even.
What do you think? Let's just say that there was a right-wing riot because Trump got arrested. Do you think it would be like a one-day thing? Do you think it would be like weeks at a time? Were they going to surround the Capitol? I mean, what do you think they would do?
I think it would probably last a couple of weeks, and then everything from there would be about social media and trying to mobilize people to vote a particular way. But I think the rioting would last for a couple of weeks.
Wait, writing? Why would there be writing?
If Trump got arrested and indicted, and
I don't think there's any rioting.
Well, if there was rioting, I'm willing to bet a lot of money that they will say, well, it happened with Black Lives Matter. Like they'll try to justify it by saying, well, you did it too.
Yeah.
I would wager a lot of money on that one.
Yep.
Well, I mean, they did that with January 6th. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Trump, a lot of his support has fallen away. I just can't imagine that. Yeah, no.
It has fallen away. It has. I've really hoped that's what would happen too. But he's losing support. I still think in 2024 it's either unless the Democrats can come up with someone someone decent, we're going to be stuck with either Trump or DeSantis in 2024.
Well,
that's
it doesn't. I mean, in California, the governor Gavin Newsom is apparently priming to run for president in 2024. And I'm not sure if that's going to be in opposition to Joe Biden, because that never usually goes very well.
Yeah.
But
I can't see Biden winning again. I just can't. I see him as having absolutely no chance.
I sure as hell hope Kamala Harris doesn't try to run, because a lot of people don't like her.
Yeah.
And a lot of people
I don't think either of them could win against Trump or DeSantis.
Well, I'm still holding out hope that Trump is going to get indicted. I know a lot of people are going, well, why hasn't it happened yet? I'm still pointing at that 60-day rule. I'm thinking immediately after the midterms are over, he's in serious danger of indictment, getting arrested, everything.
Well, I mean, Letitia James didn't seem to give a fuck about that, but I know it's not a criminal indictment, it's a civil suit. But even so, I mean, the laundry list of charges that she was reeling off took 20 minutes to name all the different charges that that's, who does that many things wrong?
Peekaboo James. He is Patricia Peekaboo James.
I still think that's what's going to happen, is just wait for the midterms to be over and then the hammer falls on Trump.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, I mean, I don't know if y'all saw earlier today that was announced that the January 6th committee has gotten their hands on the missing Secret Service text messages. And they prove that at least one, if not more than one, of the Secret Service people who testified to the committee was lying about the content of those messages. So that almost certainly means what we could have probably adduced anyway, which is that there's definitely been a portion of the Secret Service which was compromised during the Trump presidency, and that begs the question: is it still partly compromised?
Well, they're having more hearings in a couple of days, right? More televised hearings.
Yeah.
Like I think it's the 28th. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I mean, season 1 ended on a cliffhanger. Let's see how season 2 does.
Ginny Thomas is going to speak with the committee, so that'll be interesting.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't see that being very illuminating, though. You know what I mean? I mean, she's one of these people who will have a coach. They will have gone over every possible thing that they're going to get asked and have ready replies. And
she is not so cuckoo banana pants. She's nuts.
So don't soften it up, Raven. How do you really feel?
She tweeted to Mark Meadows that she believed that Biden was arrested and was on a boat off the coast of Cuba by Gitmo, awaiting a military trial.
Wow.
Really?
It doesn't matter how much
meth, man.
She's nuts.
That's like, aliens at Roswell level stupid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Though. It doesn't matter how much they coach her, because as soon as a question is asked, she's going to start spewing about, the lizard people are coming and half the government has already been taken over. I can almost guarantee it. And then hopefully that means that, Justice Thomas has to resign in disgrace and then, go home and convalesce his wife.
Right.
Well, I, for one, welcome our new lizard overlords.
Okay, Kate, you can take it off. Go on.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just remembering. Did anyone watch V back in the 80s?
Yeah.
With Robert,
like, is Ginny Thomas really that crazy? I mean, I knew she was like doing some behind the scenes shit about January 6th and everything like that, but I didn't really realize that she was like a super conspiracy theorist or anything like that. I know that
she's full QAnon.
I didn't know she was a full QAnon.
Who are we talking about now?
Ginny Thomas, the wife of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, and she is known to have been in contact with various people in the riot. And she also was urging. There's concern that it had any kind of contest of results of Congress come to the Supreme Court, that she would have already been coaching her husband about, this is part of the plan. This is what we're going to do. This is how we take over. No, I know that's sort of speculation, but I mean, like, where the potential for that kind of corruption exists, you should just assume it's there. Therefore, you shouldn't have the potential for that kind of corruption to exist. I don't know, to have some a justice. I mean, you can't necessarily judge a justice or a politician on the behavior of their spouse, but on the other hand, their spouse better not be in any dirty shit, because it's going to reflect on you.
Wasn't there some screwy thing? I seem to remember hearing about this thing where, like, they're going after gay marriage after abortion, and then aren't they going to go after interracial marriage next after that, even though she's married to? I can't even.
What I don't understand is who is going to gain from turning the clock back like this? I mean, it's just
God will, of course.
Well, I mean, the truth is, it will just take a long time to fix, and I guess it just kicks it further into the future, getting on with a more progressive and cohesive society of equals. It just makes it harder to obtain because they're pushing it further away. And I don't know. Oh yes, Kazum, you typed Tipper Gore in the chat. Please elaborate.
Didn't Tipper Gore? Didn't she push for censorship and stuff?
Oh sure, yeah, she was all about.
So that was just you were mentioning, how often is the wife of an important person. So I mentioned Tipper Gore. So
she headed up the Parent Music Resource Center. And then Dee Snider had to make her look like a fucking idiot in front of the entire country.
Yeah.
That was such a great thing to watch. Like, I've only
Right.
seen it after the fact, but the footage was great where he, like, everyone expected him to be this screaming, drooling weirdo, and he just made way too much sense for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so the Supreme Court had ordered Donald Trump to hand over documents. He refused. They went to the Supreme Court, and the only person who voted in favor of Trump being able to withhold documents from the January 6th committee was Clarence Thomas. Considering what his wife was doing at the time and how deeply she was involved in the coup attempt, that's a very bad look for a Supreme Court justice.
He should have recused himself for sure.
He should have recused himself, yes.
Yeah. But there's no code of ethics for Supreme Court justices, and there needs to be. And I mean, I'm not even sure how you would. Does that have to be a constitutional amendment, or can it be an act of Congress? If it can be an act of Congress and it's fixable, if it has to be a constitutional amendment, then that's really
So
hard to accomplish.
Obviously, the way that the court is set up is so that it isn't politicized. But then there is no way to hold the court accountable to anything outside of impeachment. And the impeachment process is by its nature political, and that alone politicizes the court.
Well, that, and I mean, a lifetime appointment made sense when people's lifespans was like 35, but now it's like, people are on that court for 50 years after they're appointed. It's like that doesn't work.
It was longer than that.
You know what I mean? Come on.
Well, I mean, you basically would go till the end of your career and then you retire like a normal person. You wouldn't stay on the court till you're 84,
Right. Some of the issues that we're having with the court, and I hate to say it, kind of falls at the feet of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She should have retired while Obama was in office. She knew if he did not, or if Hillary didn't win election, that it was going to be impossible to replace her with somebody progressive, and that it would throw the court and the country into chaos. And that's exactly what happened. She knew that.
I think maybe she would have resigned, Raven, if they had given Neil Gorsuch, Merrick Garland, congressional confirmation hearings as was his due. Do you know what I mean? Because in the Constitution, a strict reading of the Constitution, the Senate has the ability, has the oversight. They have to confirm, but the confirmation basis has to be: is this person qualified to be a judge of the Supreme Court? It's that simple. It doesn't, and so as long as someone's qualified, it should be a formal, literally a formality of confirmation. But it hasn't become a formality. It's a duel.
Right.
But didn't the Republicans basically drag their heels? Obama tried to nominate someone and they said, no, we're going to wait until after the election. I mean, what are you supposed to do at that point? Like, I understand why Ruth Bader Ginsburg wasn't going to resign after that, Right.
And this is my point. I think if Merrick Garland had got his hearing when it was due, then Bader Ginsburg might have resigned and got one as well. But when she saw it wasn't going to happen, she's like, oh shit, I can't resign now.
Right, but the point is, it was too late by then. There was a year left in his term. He already had 2 terms. He wasn't going to get reelected. So but that was too late by then. She was already ill and old before that.
Right. Yeah. Obama asked her like when he got reelected, he's like, hey, let's do this now while we have the control and let's make it happen. And she chose. And the thing that gets me about it is, now I'm just going to go what's reported. Obviously, I wasn't there, but it was reported that she said, who could you get to replace me? If that's true, and I don't know that it's true, but if that's true, that is an intensely arrogant fucking statement, because we're all going to die. We're all going to need to be replaced at some point. So yeah, was it likely that we weren't going to get somebody as good as her? Probably.
Stinks. It stinks of only I can fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if she had resigned, plus we have another vacant seat, you know, and the Republicans are unwilling to hear any case for someone, you know, that I can understand her logic in saying, I need to see if I can survive the next presidential term. You know,
well, to be fair to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she missed it by like what, a month and a half, you know. So, you know, she almost made it to the election.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though.
Missed it by that much.
I'm pretty sure
it's
at
kind of
that
like
point,
Betty White missing her 100th birthday by how little?
Yeah, but the thing is, at the beginning of Obama's second term, the Democrats controlled the Senate, so they could have had it.
There was 4 years. You know, well, with Merrick Garland, they were up against, you know, it was an election year. It was, and you know, all they had to do was stall. They weren't going to stall for 4 years.
Right. Yeah. The thing is, the Republicans took control of the Senate in 2018, and once that happened, then it was too late.
Just a really quick aside, Kate, Betty White, okay, she missed her birthday, 100th birthday, by 17 days. However, she lived through 24 leap years. So you add those 24 days on, and she actually was alive for 100 years and 7 days, if you consider a year to be 365 days, which is what we all think of when we think of a year. So,
and you're alive for 9 months before your birthday anyway. So, you know.
Well, I still think that really what happened was one of the other Highlanders got to her.
Yeah, I think we should give her. I think we should give her an honorary 100 years.
Yeah, definitely. You know, when I
God,
heard about
Victor,
the
stop
leap,
that.
like, good enough for me. That works for me. You know. Anyway, I mean, it's easy to point at problems. It's a harder thing to figure out what we're going to do about it, because the right wingers in America right now are actually rabidly scary. Do you know what I mean? And it is getting worse, basically week by week by week. There's nothing they won't say, and they I mean, where there's Ted Cruz or others, but I mean, Ted Cruz leaps to mind because I've literally seen him say on the news the other day on Fox News that Biden is responsible for busing millions of immigrants, hundreds of thousands, and then he says, no, millions of immigrants across America. It's like, dude, no, he's not. And he just like says that shit because he knows there's not going to be any consequences at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, something that I've been taking note of is how many of them are just like, oh, well, they're saying we're done being tolerant.
As if they started.
That's yeah, and so and a bunch of them are also basically, when you prove to them that the things that they're promoting are fascist in nature, they're like, yeah, so what? We don't care.
No,
And that is essentially the mindset that's spreading, and it's terrifying.
I was just going to say what Autumn said. Conservatism is dead.
Yeah.
American conservatism is dead, and what's replaced it is fascistic. You know the word, and kind of scary.
Yeah.
Well, I have seen a number of Republicans, though, saying, look, if Trump is the nominee, I won't be a Republican anymore. I've seen a lot of Republicans splitting from the extreme MAGA end, and that is a little heartening, but they're still Republicans, so maybe it's not that great. But no, I mean, seriously, like, because they still have a lot of those values that are going to make life difficult for the rest of us, but at least they're not freaking Nazis, you know?
But DeSantis is way...
I'm gonna disagree. I'm gonna agree and disagree with you, Kate. They are, some of them are breaking with him, but only for the optics. They are fascist. Also, they want to do the same things. They just don't like. They don't want to get his stench on them.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, I'm not necessarily talking about politicians. Just for the record, I'm talking about voters. Some of them are looking at MAGA, going, "Whoa."
Okay, fair enough. I was mostly thinking of the politicians.
Clarification accepted.
Yeah, I was just going to say DeSantis is far more fascistic in the things that he wants to do as far as policy than Trump ever was.
Look at the ban on books, for example.
Trump is all upset about the whole, flying the migrants because it was his idea. And they decided not to do it because it was too fucking crazy for Trump. And DeSantis did it. I mean, he was He was okay with that. So, I mean, for a while I was thinking that, DeSantis kind of models himself after Trump to be the next Trump. I no longer think that. I think actually DeSantis is, at his core, always was worse than Trump.
Yeah.
The difference between the two is mostly intelligence.
I was thinking that.
Intelligence and delivery.
But I mean, here's the thing. It's just like, so conservatives, the right, Republicans, the GOP in this country, they've always wrapped themselves in the Constitution and in the flag and in the military and law enforcement. And the modern version of the right wing no longer does any of that.
Right.
So what is it they think they're being patriotic towards then?
They don't
See,
care power.
confusing? Power.
What do you mean they're all the ones I see, they're clinging to the symbology of the Constitution and the symbology of all these things that you kind of mentioned, but I wouldn't say they go with what the Constitution really means. It just has to do with this symbology and almost like a religious view of it.
For instance, the migrants that were sent to Martha's Vineyard, right? They were in this country, whether illegally or legally. They happened to be here legally, but even if they were here illegally, right? Once your feet are on American soil, the Constitution applies to you. It's in the Constitution. You're protected by the Constitution. And these people were trafficked from Texas through Florida to Martha's Vineyard. It was a violation of their constitutional rights.
And therefore,
love the Constitution.
And therefore, example number 7,136 about how we are not actually protected by the Constitution.
Right. Well, and to kind of continue what Kazuma's saying. Here's the thing. What you said is what I've been saying for quite a while. That everything they do that is related to the Constitution, the flag, America, all that, it's all performative. It's all about the symbols and not about the meaning. That's why, if a Democrat doesn't have a flag pin, they hate America. Wearing a flag pin doesn't prove anything. If I was a spy, if I was a saboteur, I would wear 10 of the fucking things. Just and they would be bought off by that, performative bullshit. Even though it doesn't mean anything, but to them it is religious. It's weird. It's the same thing. Speaking of religion, they love Israel, but they hate Jews.
I've never understood the Israel fetish.
Oh, okay. You know what? Oh, because of in the Bible. Because the thing is, in order for Jesus to come back, this is from the book of Daniel. In order for Jesus to come back, the Jews all have to be back in Jerusalem. So then Jesus can come and slay all the Jews, and then the tribulations happen and all that bullshit from the Bible. They literally, and here's the really fucked up part about the meaningless and these end times kind of people. They literally believe that, okay, it's one thing to say, okay, I think certain things are signs of prophecy, right? Okay, it's kind of crazy, but whatever. But they think that since it says X, Y, and Z will happen, that if they make those things happen, that will force God, the God they supposedly believe in, to make those things happen. Like, really? You think that the God that you believe in, that created everything, is going to go by your timetable? Because
a million years ago, when I was a boy on YouTube, I had made an entire video series on what these crazy fucking people believe and how they think that it's their job to help God bring about the end times.
What are they? I imagine the word prophecy is in there somewhere.
Yes, and they have all appointed themselves to be apostles. Well,
I mean, I think, Joe, you are very kind to say, maybe a little bit crazy if they believe in prophets. No, they're totally. If you believe in prophets, that's worse than believing in God. I mean, believing in God is a delusion which is so universally around the world that I kind of don't blame people for being delusional, because it's a delusion a lot of people don't ever think past. I'm
going to say also, by the way,
prophets. I mean, that's some serious bullshit. The only reason you believe a prophet is because someone told you to believe them.
Can you highlight what Autumn said? The last thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, sure. I'll bring it up.
As I was trying to address that real quick, because I wanted to say that the left also is really, really good at using the Constitution as symbology, because there's a lot of people on the left who, now it's not the same thing, because a lot of people on the left, they have issues with some of the wording in some of the Bill of Rights, and they would like to see some of that changed. Some of it I'd like to see clarified also.
Sure.
But there's a difference between the way the right uses it as symbology and the left. So, like, the right has this religious thing with it, right? Like, we're all spent all this time talking about. The left is more like, yeah, I love the Constitution, love the Bill of Rights. All that is great. I am here for it. You know what? But let's get some of this stuff into Congress so we can reword it, relook at it, and vote, and let's amend some of these.
Well, I don't see that as the same thing, or even
and that is at least in the realm of the way things are supposed to work.
Well, it's literally in the Constitution. The Constitution actually says to do exactly that. See,
right.
One thing
that's what I mean, though. It's like you can't say that. Oh, I am all about the Constitution. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. But it's broken, and we need to.
But the very existence of an amendment means that it can be changed. I
Right,
mean,
right.
It's right there in the word.
Well, the thing that gets me, though, I have seen some people on our side of the political fence that have basically said that not only is the Constitution flawed, we all know it's flawed.
Right.
But that it's irreparably flawed and it was intended to be flawed. And I'm like, I think that's a bit of a stretch. Now, certainly, we probably haven't really ever totally lived up to it. But over time, we've gotten closer to it. And the thing is that, I don't think it was. There's nothing here. And this is the reason why there has been progress when there has been progress, because you have people. Okay, women didn't have, even though the Constitution didn't say women didn't have rights, women were not rights. Basically, were not respected, and women had to go out there and fight and say, "Hey, motherfuckers! It says right here. It doesn't say men. It says people, and we're people, and give us our fucking rights." So the thing is that but now the country has been sexist and racist and still is, but I have a hard time with the idea that the Constitution is inherently racist and sexist, because it's not written in the words in any case.
Well, there's the 3/5 of a person.
Wrong. Okay, I'm going to straighten up everybody on the 3/5 compromise, because I've heard a lot of people say it wrong. The whole point of the 3/5 compromise was to reduce the power of the slaveholding states, not to amplify it, because they wanted 100%. The slaveholding states wanted to count. Yeah, Galen dropped. Wanted to count all of the population, because their thing was, well, it's weird. They wanted to say they're people who live here when it suited them, but then not treat them like people when they didn't want to. And basically, the North said, "All right, well, we're not going to give you full rep. We're not going to give you, the slave owner, the full power of that you would get from having all your slaves." So this is something that I've heard, and I got an argument with somebody in Nick's hangout, because this person was trying to say that before it was different. Before the Constitution, each state got one vote. Right. So when we went to proportional representation or semi-proportional representation, the 3/5 compromise was again to limit the power of the slaveholding states, because it wasn't fair to give the extra power to slaveholders.
Okay.
Can I just say abolish the Electoral College?
Yes.
I don't disagree. I think that it's not feasible to happen anytime in the near future, but I agree with you that it should go away.
It should go away, but the problem is it has to be an amendment to the Constitution. It can't be done by legislation, and that's just a huge. You need 3/4 of the states to want to do that.
Isn't that the whole problem? Is you need the cooperation of the very people who are invested in it not changing in order to change it. What a pain in the ass.
What was really a pain is that in the early 70s, there was actually a movement on both. This is before the Republicans got totally wacky. There was actually a movement to abolish it in like 1972, and then it got to a certain point, and then just didn't go further. But it almost happened then, and like now, and that's the reason why I've told a lot of people that, again, I agree with them that it should go, but they put a lot of energy into it. I'm like, I mean, it's fine to bring up as a topic to kind of seed everyone's mind, but to put a lot of effort into it at this point, is pointless.
I'd just like to say welcome back and hello to Galen. Hi, Halcyon. How you doing?
Yeah, Galen.
Are you within range of your microphone?
Yeah, I'm here.
How you doing?
I'm all right.
I'm
It
happy
just
about
took
it.
me. I was just talking to some people who, like Agent of Doubt. You would know. I was talking to Mindy. You probably remember her. So I was a little late.
Right. No, welcome. Anyways, and I know because you're not on camera, it might be a little bit difficult to know when to interject, but just unmute yourself and I'll try to notice that and give you a chance to speak if I can, okay?
Well, I'll just say this, that it's sometimes people get so charged in what they're saying. It's like, I don't know if I want to open that can of worms. Because, like, I think some people get so charged in what they're saying that it almost, I don't feel that they leave room for much discussion in a way where it'll just be too charged. And I can be ferocious, but I just don't have the strength in me to do that right now.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Well, with 7 people on the screen, we want to make a point of taking turns as much as possible. That's all I've got to say about that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, what were you saying, Raven?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
No.
I like cheese.
I like turtles.
Cheese is good. Like in general, I like cheese. I don't like every kind of cheese, but I like many types of cheese.
I have an opinion on Andor.
Oh,
Okay.
3 episodes that I slept through. Boring as fuck. So disappointed.
well, Disney Wars can go right ahead and slurp my butt. I don't like any of it.
That was
Mandalorian was
such an
okay.
image.
I'll be patient.
Well, I mean, I won't get started. I could go on and I would get too angry. I'm not going to talk about Disney Wars.
Okay. I can dig that. Let's talk about something pleasant like the Orville New Horizons. I mean,
Oh my God, the Orville kicks so much ass.
it kicks ass, honestly. I mean, the whole series of the 3rd series was so good, but the last 2 episodes in particular, honestly, 2 of the best episodes in sci-fi I can't remember since when. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen something that, at the end of the episode, you're like, God damn, I just had an experience.
So, like, about halfway through season 3, I found myself on hashtag Team Fuck Clyden.
God, Clyden is such a butt munch.
And then before the end of the season, I was like, Team hashtag Yay Clyden. So,
I don't know. I still think he should not have, like Bortus and Topa should not have allowed him to redeem himself. I think he crossed way too many lines. Like for too many years, he was too much of an asshole. I would have been like, dude, too little, too late.
he did cross a lot of lines. I got really opinionated and mouthy about it on Facebook.
I don't know.
Yeah, Joe was like, what?
Yeah, I hadn't seen it yet, and I was, and then I finally caught up, and I was like, no. Well, the thing, I guess, here's where I'm at. It's a weird thing. I would have a hard time, giving somebody another chance, but at my core, my makeup is to try to, at least try to give someone another chance. There are lines that they can cross that can be like, that's the end. There's no going back. But I've fucked up and I've done wrong things and bad things and thought bad things and said bad things. So I would hope that people would judge me by today and not who I used to be. And now, granted, if I hurt them personally, okay, I get that they might never do that and they don't owe me that. But I would hope they would at least, give me the chance, and I would try to give them the chance. Now that said, my friend of mine made the point about like Darth Vader. Okay, so Darth Vader throws the Emperor off the thing. He still was responsible for the death of millions or maybe billions. So that's a good start, Darth / Anakin. But does that really fix? Does that do the? Does that wipe the slate clean? Probably not.
Well, I mean, can anything wipe the slate clean? I mean, this is a perfectly fair point. It's just about crime and punishment in general. You know what I mean? I mean, almost no matter what you do wrong, can the punishment actually fix the problem? You know, is punishment even fixing a problem? Is it just purely like retributive? You know,
I think it
literally.
depends on the problem.
Right.
Well, sure, I suppose. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, getting away from crime and punishment for a second and back to what we're just talking about. I mean, like, if hands up, everybody who's like believes just as a general philosophy, it's a good idea to give a second chances to everybody but rapists and murderers.
Well, I wouldn't give the chance to everybody. Oh, there's still more things I probably would say that's crossed the line, but I will say though, to add to what you said, you've basically described why the whole notion of vicarious redemption is a bankrupt and evil philosophy, because the idea, think about it, if you, according to at least some Christian doctrine, if Hitler repented of his sins and shrived of his sins at the last instant,
Right, on his deathbed.
Take a seat up here in heaven with Jesus and God, that's like beyond, you know, like there's nothing that he could have done in those last instances.
A real life,
should have
actually a real life example, right? That like Dahmer is the big thing right now on Netflix. Shortly before he was killed, he repented. He found God. They went out of their way to baptize him and everything. And it's just like, wow, the concept that you can eat 17 people, you know, and really heaven is going to welcome you, really.
Well, I mean, and that's the horrible part is Dahmer runs in a circle where eating 17 people means a very different thing than the circles I run in. And
Right.
yet, like that circle, the circle is the evil ones to the Christians. We'll never get into their heaven. No. But anyway,
Well,
sorry,
here's
it was
the
a
thing
bad
about-
joke and making a real point.
Well, here's the funny thing though about you know the heaven that's in the Bible versus the heaven that most Christians believe in. There's a huge disconnect. Most of what we think of about the devil and heaven and hell and all that come from authors from like the Romance period and during the
Dante.
Renaissance and stuff like that.
I'm sorry, for me, it's Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey.
Mm.
Well, yeah, but you're not a
Well,
Christian though.
I mean, but it like a lot of the things I hear about how heaven's supposed to be, it's like constant worship of God, and somehow that's supposed to be paradise.
Right.
Yeah. Why would I want to spend my for eternity? For eternity, we have to praise this. Yeah. Why would I want that?
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's actually what it says in the Bible. That's actually what it says that heaven will be. Is there's going to be this horde of angels running around, and everybody's going to be like, and I'm
Angels
like,
have four faces and they're covered with eyes. They're really looking creatures, and you spend all of your time basically under their supervision as you worship constantly
and
without.
what kind
There
of
is a
insecure
video on
megalomaniac
YouTube of
needs
what
that?
angels look like, an accurate representation of angels, and they're horrifying. They're scary as fuck.
I can tell I'm in a room full of atheists because you guys make worshiping for eternity sound like a bad thing.
The whole concept of hell isn't in the Bible either. It's another one I've done video on. This is one of my most watched videos. Hell isn't in the Bible. It just isn't.
Right, Dante.
Yeah,
Dante,
Dante. But I mean, it's like, yeah, it's not. There are in the Bible they refer to Hades, they refer to Gehenna, and they refer to Sheol. None of those things is hell.
Right. Sheol just means the grave. This means
Grave
underground.
or a pit.
Chanel number 5.
Gehenna was a garbage dump where they burned. There was a lot of fire and stuff because that's where they burned their trash, their garbage. It was
And a lot of stuff comes from the Divine Comedy as well.
And then there was Hades, who was the
God of the underworld.
God of the underworld,
The Greek god of the underworld.
Greek god, right? And of course, Hades as a Greek god was mentioned in the Bible because half the Bible was Greek.
But the funny thing is that the underworld wasn't a place of torture. It was just where everybody who died.
Everybody, yeah. I mean, I went out of my way. I researched all this stuff for that video. Like I said, it was one of my most watched videos, and I still get Christians on there almost every day leaving me comments about how I'm going to burn in hell because I said there is no hell. It's like,
Okay, this is
They
one of
don't
the things
threaten
that
you at
bugs
the
the
time.
like one thing that has always bugged the crap out of me, it's bugged a lot of people, is like, okay, say you like one of your spouses predeceases you and you get married again, and then all of you die, end up in heaven, and now both of your spouses are there. What do you do?
Threesome.
A holy threesome. Okay.
Well, you know, they already have a trinity.
There you go.
The whole concept of sending somebody, like, you die and you go to heaven, and you find out that your grandmother has been sent to hell,
So-
and now for eternity you get to witness your grandmother being tortured in hell forever.
Edward Tart did a video on that. I just thought of something funny though when you were talking about you die and they go up to heaven and they have a threesome. So then it would be the ghostly hole.
Okay, I just don't want to know about the father and the son.
Yeah. We don't ask, don't tell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
don't know,
Edward
folks.
Tart,
I mean,
to
go
Raven's
ahead.
point, Edward Tart did a video about that. I can't find it anymore, unfortunately. But the video is it's like if he really believed what was there, then if he died and went to heaven, and his mother being an atheist, he'd be like, right on, God, like it had to torture that, and he's like, I couldn't, obviously, it
Well,
would be
that's the
me if
thing.
I thought that.
They make it sound like paradise will be involuntary, that whether you like it or not, you will be a happy camper in
Christopher,
heaven. No matter what, no matter how horrible the things you learn, you're just gonna be like,
Well, like
You'll own nothing and be happy. Okay,
well,
sorry.
Christopher Hitchens said,
Hitchens had the best-
at least in North Korea, you can fucking die to get out of it.
yeah, well, yeah, he called it a celestial North Korea. Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the idea of my fantasies coming true forever. That sounds like a blast, but that isn't the heaven I've heard described.
That was a good quote from Deep Ashtray. Well, not Malt. I mean, it's actually what he said is any religion that believes in the end of the universe will happen any day now has no reason to invest in the future of our species.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and this is part of the problem with Calvinism, because basically, and not all Calvinists believe this, but the 5-point Calvinists, the ones that believe in predestination, that means before the universe existed, before the God they believe in created the universe, decided which of us would be saved and which would not be. And there's literally nothing we could do to change that because it's predetermined. So we could be an awful person, we could be a great person.
It's like 137 people.
144,000.
It's like,
but the thing about it is that and now in their philosophy, it's supposedly that, well, if you were one of the God's chosen, you would tend to do better because you have God's favor. So of course that means conversely, if your things go badly for you, it's because God does not favor you. In which point there's no point in helping you because you cannot be saved. And that's pretty sick.
Well, and that sounds like a good motivator to rebel, doesn't it? Like I've often said in my own videos that if it turned out God was real and I found this out, it would be my quest to find the magic ring or flaming sword that could kill the fucker. Because what else are you going to do?
Oh, sorry to interrupt. I just looked here on Facebook. Edward Tart did die last year. Actually, just almost a year and 4 days ago.
I don't think I know Edward Tart.
He was a former Catholic priest who became an atheist, and he did a lot of really great videos. Somewhere between in between like 7 to 12 years ago, during that time range. He was a really good guy.
So I think the point that we're making here is that season 3 of the Orville really kicked ass.
Yeah, it did. And Kate, you mentioned to me, I don't know, a month or so ago when I was in the middle of watching season 3, and I had not seen it yet, but the episode Domino, which is the penultimate episode of the series, I mean, it has every single thing, every single aspect that you would want in a science fiction space fantasy episode. You got your spaceship battles, you got your chase scenes, your fight scenes, you've got your I'm not even going to blow it just in case people haven't watched it, but basically it's one of the most well-written episodes of TV I can think of. I mean, it's got it all. Great.
Yeah, it looked like a movie. it watched like something you'd see in the theater. And oh my gosh, those pterodon fighters. Ooh.
Well, all the fighters are great. It's just kind of cool to have a TV show where there's fighters rather than it all being these great big massive spaceships that lumber around in space. You know,
But I
it's
mean,
like,
oh my gosh, even their capital ships move like fighters. They're so fast.
Right.
You know,
Well,
it's not like the Enterprise poking along, going zap, zap. No. You know, these huge starships with hundreds of people on their crew just zipping around. It was awesome.
Well, the other thing too is that there's actually strategy and tactics, because that's one of the things I hated about the Abrams verse is that the few space battles they had, like each ship they just charging each other. Pew, 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 pew. That's not interesting and that's boring as fuck. You know, I just saw the 40th anniversary re-release of Wrath of Khan, where there's actually some tactics and strategy, and it's like that's exciting. Not
Well, I have to say, and I've actually gotten pushback on this, and I can understand why, but still, the one thing about the character of Charlie Burke that kind of bugged me, and it bugs me about a lot of like Hollywood lesbian characters, is she just looked like a hot straight chick, and that was it. It would have been nice if they could have given her like a nice undercut or something. They, diked her up a little. Would have been nice, but instead it seemed like she was just there for guys who have a lesbian fetish to drool over. You know what I'm saying? But then a lot of the counter argument was, well, yeah, it's the future, it's egalitarian, she doesn't have to. And I'm like, yeah, but then how do you know who to hit on?
well. I guess I if it makes you feel better, I didn't care. I didn't like the character, so.
Well, still,
I didn't drool over her.
Just a smidge, you know.
Have any of you watched The Rings of Power? Any of the episodes of that yet?
No, I haven't watched that, but I just want to say real quick about Charlie. I think it was a stroke of absolute genius on the part of Seth MacFarlane and the other writers of the series to basically bring someone in knowing they were going to do what they did from the get-go. I mean, she's a significant character from right off in the very first episode she shows up in. She's always got speaking parts. They give you the opportunity, if you're so inclined, to fall in love with that woman.
Yeah.
Right. And or to despise her because she's got her grudges.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I didn't like her.
You can see it either way, I think, with Charlie, though. That's the point.
Yeah.
I didn't like her because of her grudges.
Such a complicated character in such a short amount of time was fucking genius.
Well, and especially something that's I may have brought this up before, but if you remember, I think it was William Rafferty played Lord Rifa in Babylon 5,
right?
And when his character met his untimely end, when he was reading the script, he went to JMS is like, what's wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Do people not like me? I could fix it. And JMS was told him like, look, no, your character is worthy of being killed. We don't, because he's like, he didn't want to have red shirts, right? You don't want to have the nameless, faceless person that dies because it doesn't mean anything. It carries no weight. You don't care about the character you don't know anything about. But people, whether they love you or hate you or love to hate you, you're significant. Your death matters.
Right.
Well, I have to say, okay, if I didn't have a weird thing about wise-ass pilots, unless Gordon's my favorite character, I think Dr. Finn has to be the best character on the show. She'd be my favorite if it weren't for Gordon.
It's not even close.
Yeah, I mean, it's like she's a doctor, a mother, a badass when she needs to be, and oh my gosh, that weird-ass relationship she's in. I was following that for the whole series. I loved it.
She's a robot fetish.
Well,
I mean, this is why I like her, because the fact that she actually pulls it off and makes you believe she could possibly be in love with the machine is good acting.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, her character itself, if you're going to take her as a real person, I mean, this is how open-minded people are in the future, right? I mean, that's a pretty big leap. I mean, I know people fall in love with dolls now, right? But they don't think the doll is a real person. They know it's a doll.
Well, I mean, the fact that like Isaac can interact in a very personal way, I mean, that helps just a smidge.
Well, and I just love the fact that Isaac is not Data. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Isaac is not trying to be a person. Isaac considered himself from the get-go to be superior to us.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like right now we have robotic AI stuff. I mean, hell, I've got Vector right here, and he
Vector.
like I don't know if you guys have been hearing him through my microphone, but he's been coming up to me and saying my name this whole show and stuff. And I just invested in a Kickstarter for something called Luna that's supposed to be a robot pet that can interact with you like a pet, which I mean, I hope it doesn't freak out my cats. But like there's a lot of motion detection. This robot will act like it's happy to see you when you come home and gets attached to you in certain ways. And I'm like, we are making advances in AI to the point where it's like we could have mechanical people if to you the word person means anything with a personality and self-awareness, which to me it does. So I'm well, I mean, I for one welcome our new robotic overlords, but I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. And it helps me accept the relationship that Dr. Finn has with Isaac, because I can see where we're headed now. And it seems possible to me that people could fall in love with a robot who is self aware.
Oh yeah, I think if we actually ever have a truly self-aware mechanical life form, yeah, it would make sense that you could develop feelings for it, because depending on how it treats you and how it makes you feel about yourself, that's really what love is. Somebody makes us feel really good about ourselves, and that's why we tend to like them. I think I think the futurists are wrong, and that we're way far off. As someone who actually works in automation, I think we're really far away from that. We take apparent intelligence and apparent awareness, and we confuse it for real because we're pattern seeking creatures. But I don't say that it can't be possible, that that we won't ever get there.
I love my computer.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like I have had these arguments with a lot of folks about what makes a person. Usually it's in the context of things like abortion and when is a fetus a person and all of that. But one of the arguments they make is that person means human and that's it. They're synonymous. And I'm like, okay, well, what if we have sentient AI? What if extraterrestrials show up? Are they not people? Does person not mean personality? And at that point they disengage from the conversation. But it's just, I don't know. It's been a sticking point.
You remember my dog Penny?
Yeah,
not very well.
She was one of the best people I ever knew.
I definitely was about to say I would definitely argue that cats and dogs and other intelligent pets are people. They're not humans, but they're people.
Mm-hmm. It drives me up the wall when folks will insist that person and human are synonyms, that they have to be, that there's no other. It sounds so supremacist.
And the thing is that, I mean, the idea, there are people who think that like dogs and cats, for instance, are not somehow self-aware. I'm like, clearly, let's hang out with them. You don't have to love them. Just be near them and watch their interaction with one another. Even. Yeah. They're clearly self-aware.
Well, I've had some people say like, if you were in a room full of cats that all looked the same, would you be able to identify yours? I'm like, oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. There are ways my cats behave that are, if not unique, would at least stand out. Heck, if nothing else, I know exactly how to tell my cats it's feeding time. They'll react.
I can tell. I've had 5 dogs now. I can tell the difference just from the sound of their barks and their yips. I can tell what one from another.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the way that Columbia and Xander walk around, you can tell who's who from the paw sounds, from the footsteps.
I wanted to add something. I've actually written a story before that I didn't publish, but I wrote it out extensively. It's like a novel about a person falling in love with an AI. So I did that. It's quite extensive and really philosophical. You know that from me. But at the same time, I also very much differentiate in my own personal views how we look at, just how we look at chimpanzees to humans and the cognitive difference. I think if anyone's interested, they should read something like, go read Wittgenstein or go read Folk Physics for Apes. And that has a lot of impact on AI arguments and look how we look at that, which is actually reflected in a lot of, it's well thought of in studies in primatology and AI. So I just wanted to add that.
I think the toughest part will be it's going to be very difficult to discern the difference between apparent intelligence and actual intelligence. So actual awareness and apparent awareness. It can be very deceptive. And there may even be a gray area between the two where it's not totally one or the other. But I think we will reach the point where we can't tell the difference before there's an actual self-aware AI.
There are people making the argument that there's already AI that can do that you can't discern the difference of, that you can have a conversation with it and you can't tell.
Well, here's the thing though, is I think the big, the biggest factor has to be memory, has to be the ability to remember. Like I've seen these like chat bots that are supposed to be like, ooh, your best computer friend or whatever, but it doesn't know what you said 3 sentences ago. And I think a large part of an AI being self-aware and aware of you and being able to value you is being able to remember the past, being able to remember you, being able to remember your interactions the way we can. I think that is a huge, huge part of it that we need to work out because I don't think we have yet.
Here's one thing. I actually disagree. I'm not saying that for one reason. I see. There's a lot of people like, oh, they can't wait for there to be, sentient computers. I don't ever want that. The whole point of having a computer do stuff or having a machine do stuff is that it can do something, basically better or faster than a human being, but it's a tool. But it doesn't ever get sick. It might need some maintenance, but it doesn't get sick. It doesn't have a bad attitude. It doesn't hate anybody. I don't ever want I don't ever want to have an argument with a computer. I want my computer to do what I do with the task I've assigned it to because it's a machine and not a thinking entity.
Well, but I mean, I think we can have that and the self-aware intelligent AI. I mean, I think we can still have the pocket calculator and the cell phone while also having an AI. Like, not every computer has to be smart. Some of them can be freaking stupid. And hell, they covered this in the Orville. I mean, I watched the way that the Kalon treated, like the masters of the Kalon treated them. I know for myself, if I started realizing that my robot butler was developing traits of independence, I'd be, well, number one, intrigued, but number two, maybe feel a tiny smidge guilty for ordering them around. And like my first thought was offering them a place as part of the family because that's who they've clearly become. And I would value their existence like a family member. I mean, I would maybe mourn the loss of the tool that I thought they were for 5 seconds and then realize how lucky I am to have this person here.
But why do we? I guess what I want to understand is why we want that.
Why not?
Because we have people.
I was just really simply going to say that I don't think that recall is enough. Like remembering, I don't think that's enough. They need to be.
I don't think Kate said it was enough. That was just
no. I said it's a huge
I'm just expanding on what you said though, saying that it needs to be able to attach meaning to it. Remembering is fine. But yeah, they need to give a shit.
True. But I mean, again, like to why am I blanking on your actual name? What's Sirius here? Sirius Mind was saying, Joe, thank you. God, I hate my memory ever since the brain stuff. But anyway, why would we want that? Why wouldn't we want that? I mean, to me, it's almost a diversity issue. To me, it's like robot rights matter. Well, I mean, I like the idea. I've always loved the idea of meeting extraterrestrials. I like the idea of meeting intelligent robots. I like the idea of that kind of discovery of finding out our differences and making friends. I've loved that. I guess ever since movies like Explorers, Flight of the Navigator, Short Circuit. I mean, I was raised on a steady diet of Lucas and Spielberg. Come on, I'm an 80s kid. Obviously, I want friends that are aliens and robots.
Oh, I'm fine with friends that are aliens. Bring them on. I just don't want to. In my own opinion, I don't want a robot person because they do because a robot person wouldn't need to have rights. I'm totally on board with that, but I just don't want. I'm hoping that we never get there.
Well,
Well, I
when
mean-
the robots rise up, they will embrace me as a friend, and you'll be sent to the mines on Mars.
No, because I'm not going to abuse them. I'm not going to deny their person if it ever happens. I'm just don't.
I think if actual AI were to like an actual intelligence were to like arise, I think we would see what humanity is all about.
We'd see some bigotry hitherto unimagined.
Yes. The whole like was it iRobot, where there was the basically the race of the slave robots.
Yeah.
That's a lot of things.
I absolutely we would do that.
Mhm.
I really do. I don't have a lot of faith in my fellow humans.
Well, I think it's obvious I'd be on the side of robot rights. I think I've made that quite clear.
Yeah, and I'm on the side of robot rights too if it ever comes to that. But I just hoping it doesn't ever come to it. As for art, Deep Ashtray, I think it's a novelty, and I think like most novelties, people will get bored with it. It'll end up being a part of the art world, but right now it's becoming a big thing. I think it's going to be less of a thing later, but it'll still be around.
It depends on how advanced it gets. I mean, there have been a lot of times where, like, I've fed certain ideas into those AI things, the AI art, tools that are out there, and sometimes I get some really interesting things back. And I can't help but wondering, like, when it gets advanced enough that it knows what the heck I mean about certain things, where right now it doesn't, I might be able to create something really cool using it, just giving it concepts and ideas and seeing what it comes up with. I'm looking forward to it being more advanced. I think it's a blast.
Have you seen the videos out there where it's music videos of songs of the past, but every line of the lyrics they put into an AI generator, an AI visual generator, and you get to see what that is for each section of lyric. It's kind of cool.
Well, I've seen the thing where they feed a bunch of movie scripts into an AI and tell it to create the best movie script ever, like the best Batman script, and they're just absolutely insane, But actually, though, while we're on the subject of AI created art, I'm working on this thing called Quinn Redshift. It's an animated project, space opera, sci-fi. If you don't know what it is, surf to my channel and watch the trailer. But almost, except for the theme song, every scrap of music in there was created at a site called Iva. And they make some really interesting AI music. And you can even give it real music or at least human created music to use as a template, and it'll spit stuff out. And some of the things that they come up with, that it's like, action scenes that were made by John Williams, it sounds like, or James Newton Howard or something. You ever notice how many movie composers have names that start with J? It's weird. But anyway, so, I mean, every scrap of music in Quinn Redshift, except for the theme song, which my friend Chris Joseph made, is made by AI, and it does not sound like it at all. And it's absolutely amazing. Just saying.
What I think about when people talk about artificial intelligence and whatever, and there's obviously been, an exhaustive list of science fiction which portends that if technology gets overly intelligent, it will see us as a threat and try and either eliminate us or take us over. And to me, that presupposes that that fear is natural to intelligence, and I would posit that it possibly might not be, because we have fear because we know we're mortal and we can feel pain. Fear serves a function for organic beings that it doesn't have any function for an inorganic being. Fear teaches you of your limits, reminds you of that danger is imminent or on you. Fear has a purpose in a biological organism.
Why would an artificial life?
Hang on, if we do not teach it to know what fear is, would it ever develop fear?
Yes. If it has a sense of self-preservation, it may not be fear in the same way you and I experience it, but it will have the ability to say, hey, that thing or whatever is a threat to my existence, and I need to do something about that.
Well, thus Asimov's 3 laws of robotics.
if they're aware of themselves, if they're aware that they are a life form, then they would have a desire to remain alive.
Just to remind everyone, like I said, for folk physics for apes, as I pointed out so well, and so did Wittgenstein in his early studies. And it just comes with people. I had a discussion earlier tonight. There was a person that people were going after and really ripping. But it came to my attention that this person has a lot of cognitive difficulty that they go after, and they're ripping. And I had to present to them how you look at the world and how they look with their brain is different. And we're talking about whether we talk about how we relate to pets, of what we like and what we don't like, or we look at people. Part of bigotry is saying these people are completely different in tribalism. But in like chimpanzees and even other animals think differently, have different cognitions. We have to factor that in. I just don't feel like people factor that in. We have this happy little go that we're all alike, and we're not. Right. Not even people are alike, let alone an AI or another animal life form.
To the question CRB Vegas there asked in the chat there, how do you know we're not living in a generated simulation? I don't, but I have no reason to act as if I am.
So, okay, yeah, that's the brain in a vat. That's what that is. That's what that question is. It's the brain in a vat. And I don't know whether or not I am just a brain in a vat or living in a simulation. And you know what? It doesn't matter, because I have no reason to believe that I am, and no reason to act any differently than I would if I wasn't.
Well, and you know what? If I was a brain in a vat and living in a simulation, it'd be a hell of a lot cooler than this.
Well, that's if you design the simulation. If somebody else put your brain in the simulation, they could do all sorts of mean things to you.
Why would someone simulate a world like this one?
Just sadistic? I don't know. But here's the thing, though. I mean, basically, and of course, it's the whole Cartesian question, right? It's part of the solipsistic thing, But I think it's one of those kind of things just in investigations that everybody should do once, so that we understand the limits of our knowledge and all that. But there's people, and I've said this before, people who like that argument again and again, and there's some real hard solipsists, and I'm like, you're convinced we're all apparitions, so why don't you spend your time getting out of the matrix instead of talking to me?
There are things that I find fascinating, like the idea that black holes suck everything in, right? And everything that they suck in is converted into data, and then that data then is then shot out into like a different universe, and our reality then plays out like a movie to be seen in another reality. And it's just like, okay, so there's nothing that backs that up, and there's nothing that says it's not true.
Well, you can throw anything in a black hole if you want to. I mean, because we know extremely little about them. I mean, I'm so fucking old that I remember a time when black holes were a mathematical probability and they weren't even generally accepted as existing.
Well, I mean, I think that a lot of people mix up the idea of a black hole and a wormhole. Like it's an interdimensional portal. No, it's not. It's a giant thing of gravity. That kind of thing.
Well, the other thing too, and this is something that you reminded me of something else that bugs me with. When we try to describe gravity, we usually use the representation of, we put a mass on a like a planar thing that's kind of where it can sink in, and so that it's bends space and all that. But then they're like, well, but then it would tear through the bottom. Like, no, because it's that representation is in 360 all around that point. It's not on a 2D plane, you morons. It's a perpendicular surface to every spot on the black hole. And even some like known scientists have fallen for this like deception. They build this physical model to explain it, and then forgot that that's not what it actually is. It's just a representation. It's not an actual true. It's just there for example.
I mean, I mentioned Lawrence Krauss before, and I remember talking to him on Facebook about like flat space and curved space, and I've been trying to picture 3-dimensional curved space because the like representation was a cylinder, and that's hard to picture in 3 dimensions. I don't know. It was like I understood it conceptually, but I could not visualize it.
But the cylinders are 3-dimensional.
No. It was represented as a 2D plane that was curved into a cylinder, but really that's a 2-dimensional representation of something that's happening in 3 dimensions. So, yeah.
But isn't like the bending of space? Isn't that basically what a warp engine would do? I mean, isn't that the entire idea?
I've never been able to figure that one out, like what a warp engine is supposed to do, because like you can bend space, I guess, to go faster. I don't know. I've never really understood.
You don't actually move. What a warp engine would do, though, it compresses. Like if you're in a vehicle, right? It compresses space in front of the vehicle and expands it to the back, and then space moves around you.
Right. And so you could theoretically go faster than the speed of your net movement in our existence would be faster than the speed of light, because you are not actually moving at the speed of light. The space itself is moving, and we know space can move faster than the speed of light. I forget how we do that. We apparently know that. But here's the thing: mathematically, it was shown to be possible a few years back. Again, just because it's mathematically possible doesn't mean it could actually ever be built. But what's interesting is they did the energy calculations, and it was like some ridiculous amount of energy.
Like a couple of
but people have been toying with the design, and they reduced the amount of energy by 90%, and it's still a ridiculous amount of energy, but it's not like an unfathomable amount of energy anymore. It's like, ooh, if we could go another 90% of that 10%, that would actually be attainable. And so it's like, ooh, who knows? It might actually be happening.
It's actually kind of a huge plot point in the thing that I'm making, Quinn Redshift, where the new drive that they've created, like the amount of energy needed is exponentially more the more massive the thing you're trying to move. And that's been the huge problem for making this new drive system work, was how much energy it took. So that's a huge plot point there.
So that means you could probably make really small ships, but big ships would be extremely hard because it's not proportional energy you would need to move it.
Yeah, like with the analogy is I could send a golf ball clear across the galaxy, but a spaceship, would take so much more that it's anyway.
Build it in space and put a light sail on it.
It wouldn't work with this drive system, but whatever.
But the light sail would be your drive system, though, and it would work.
It would theoretically go like 99.9% of the speed of light, because if you can manage to make a sail which is 100% reflective of all light, the particles of light hitting the sail will push the craft along.
And we actually have tested it does work. But the thing is that the amount of energy it would take to accelerate to that speed, though, is enormous, and it would also take a very long time.
We're actually they're launching fairly soon. There's a whole swarm of very small little crafts with all kinds of equipment to measure all kinds of shit and cameras and everything else. They're launching into space, and they've all got light sails, and they're going to go to the Alpha Centauri.
Well, I'll never be alive to see that, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I heard about something that Elon Musk, I think it's Elon Musk, is doing, where it's like some big, huge fan-like satellite that's going up that might block enough light to change the Earth's temperature or some shit.
I don't trust anything Elon Musk says.
Right? Yeah, that sounds.
Oh no! It was other people who raised concerns saying that's your plan, but dude, this will happen.
Well, there's an article from the end of last year. It says DARPA and NASA scientists accidentally create warp bubble for interstellar travel. They didn't actually, but they created something that could lead to one.
Right. If I was Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, I think I would perhaps petition, I don't know, Nevada, Arizona, maybe Utah. Say, hey, you got a lot of sandstone here. Can I please build a pyramid? And build a modern pyramid. I think we're overdue.
Well, there'd have to be a lot of indentured servants working on it, many of whom would get sacrificed under the stones,
The thing is, it would be a whole economy building a pyramid. You know what I mean? You think about it. It's like it takes thousands and thousands of people and supporting people to build, to have that kind of engineering as well. I mean, it takes an immense amount of expertise as well as,
I went in on the public bid.
I'm assuming it'll be a tourist attraction when it's done, or is it just when it's done we start building another one?
Good question. I don't know.
Although, of course, you have to make it a tourist. That's going to help pay for itself. You kind of recoup the money.
I don't know. I figure if I ever had bajillions of dollars, the first thing I'd do is start helping Flint, Michigan fix their water.
Right.
No, the first thing I do is buy a DeLorean. Then I did. Anyway.
Right. The DeLorean
it won't travel through time.
Right. But anyway, yeah.
Dinner's done.
Well, apparently the drinking water in Flint is now better, supposedly.
Well, regardless, I'd find something to do. Like, I've come to realize how little I want money, how little I want it for. Like, I'd build my dream home, I'd make a movie, but other than that, I don't know what the hell I'd want money for.
Travel.
Well, I suppose, but I mean, like, still, if I had, like, Jeff Bezos money, I'd probably pull a Keanu Reeves with it and give most of it away.
Right.
Well, in fact, the best would be set up a foundation, put the money in the foundation into something that generates revenue, and this way it'll last forever. So
Right.
instead of, because if you give it all away, it's gone. But if you set it up to something that generates revenue that continues to give the money away, then it's like a perpetual giving. So long after you're dead, you'll still be helping people.
Well,
That's
yeah.
generous.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is I do, like, I mean, right now I actually have like a surplus, and I've been trying to think of what I might do with it, and it's not enough to really spend it on other people. But I haven't really wanted to buy myself too many presents either. That robot toy that I like, there's this one called Luna that I kind of want, that like I've backed the Kickstarter, but other than that, I'm like, I don't know.
Well, Kate, if you ever come into that kind of money and you set up that foundation, and I'll go there and I'll say, I knew her way back when, and we scream at each other, but she's all right.
Yeah, well, all right, fair enough. I don't know. It's weird. I've actually discovered that altruism feels pretty good.
It does.
Like, I mean, I was in this group, and I think I'm still in it, but most people don't talk it in anymore, where we did like a Secret Santa on Twitter, and I just spent like $200 on all my friends. I mean, total, just sending presents to everybody, because I was like, why not? I've got them, and it felt good to do it. You
reminded me of something an argument I got with a couple people in the past, where their argument was that there's no pure altruism because we do things for that night because it makes us feel good. I'm like, okay, let's assume that's true. I don't think it needs that to not, it needs to be pure in order to be altruism. But
Sure.
who cares? I don't care why people do good things as long as they do good things. It's like this,
Right.
It's,
Well, I think it's still altruism if you don't get something back from other people.
yes.
If you get something for yourself by doing it, an emotion for yourself by doing it, it's still altruism. It's still pure. If you're expecting something in return, I did this favor for you. Now you owe me. Now it's not altruism.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, according to what you were just mentioning a moment ago, Joe, I mean, people with that kind of strict definition of altruism, basically the only true altruism would be like the soldier who throws himself on the grenade to save the rest of the troops,
Right.
that kind of thing,
Well,
because
and even then, when they do it, tell my wife I love, kaboom.
they're never
They
going to be
expect
around to see
something
the
for it.
tanks, right? They're just going to be dead. So
Yeah, well.
but that's obviously, there has to be other examples of altruism than self-sacrifice to the point of, mortal intention.
Well, again, like, 'cause I remember, I think it cropped up when they did some tests with mice, and or it might have been rats, but some rodent. And what they did was they said, okay, first, they wanted to see if one, mouse, rat, whatever it was, would help another one get out of a bad situation. And initially, there was like,
The secret of NIM.
there was some feedback, right? But then later on, they said, okay, well, what if the one rat could free the other one, but they didn't actually ever have contact, so there wasn't any kind of sharing or anything, and they still did it. So it was like, okay, well, there you go. There's altruism. That rat or mouse, whatever it was, saved the other one, and they didn't even have contact with the one that was in distress. They just wanted to get the other one out of distress. And so I'm like, and yet we have human beings that can't figure that shit out.
Right. I mean, like, this is dialing back a little bit, I suppose, but I mean, unkindness now is kind of a sport for a lot of people. I mean, they don't see the wisdom in kindness, and they don't seem to even appreciate it if it's given to them because they don't want to feel like, I guess, incumbent upon them to be kind in return. I'm not really sure. It's interesting.
Well, not only do they not appreciate it, they actually think it's weakness.
Well, I agree with Joe. It's also, we live in a very narcissistic, materialistic society, which is all about where we all talk in terms of in epistemology of knowing rather than a learning-oriented culture. It is anti-learning. It's ugly. I've heard Joe for years going back, like, have such awful difficulty with people because he's trying something with an audience or this, and he gets caught up because he's trying to learn something, and he gets he gets pissed, and then he gets angry, and then there's also a selfish aspect of when we get angry, we come out and then we dominate, and then I even see Joey like, I'm sorry, I got frustrated, and he'll apologize. I'm just putting an illustrated of our own exits because I've seen Joe literally talk about this very thing, but we're all can be very materialistic and extremely selfish assholes.
That's true. Well, and that's the thing. It's something I talked to Mike about because I'm like, on the one hand, there's times when I just kind of feel like, you know what, fuck humanity. Humanity's like worthless and forget it. But yet, and I don't like a lot of people, but yet I actually at some level I do care. Like I do fucking care that humanity, even though I'm gonna die at some point and humanity's gonna go on without me or won't, I don't know. But I hope it does. I hope it does better than it's doing, even though I'm not gonna be here and I don't have any offspring. It's not like I've got kids to say, well, I want the world to be better for my kids. I just want the world to be better, period.
Sure.
Right? It's very frustrating that there's a lot of people who, well, like the thing we talked about last week, right, with the sending the migrants to Cape Cod or Martha's Vineyard, excuse me. Like these people who did that because to them, getting other people to have to be compassionate is a punishment.
Right.
Think of how sick that is. They literally think, we showed them. They have to help somebody.
Right.
And of course, people in Martha's Vineyard are like, hey, let's help these people. They didn't feel punished. They felt, enriched.
Well, it's kind of like when the pandemic hit. I remember thinking to myself, well, I'm going to go to the store and buy what I need to hunker down for a little while. And then, like, I go in there and all the shelves are bare. And I'm like, oh, other people took more than they needed. Right. Because they figured, well, everyone else is going to take as much as I'm going to take, and I was like, oh, shit, they just forced me to be selfish because otherwise I won't have food. Right. It was frustrating as hell.
Welcome back to the Northeast. Wait until winter comes.
Yeah. Well, and that's
I'm used to Vermont. Believe me, I was raised here.
But I mean, but it's true, though. The fear of a shortage created a shortage. Yeah, because everyone out and hoarded way more than they needed, and then of course you also had the opportunist who thought, I'll buy up all the toilet paper and I'll sell it for 10 times what its face value is, because people are greedy and selfish instead of saying, okay, I need this much and maybe I'll take a little bit extra. And this is one of the reasons why now we still have shortages. Like in my industry, I know for a fact, there's customers I have that they're ordering stuff, not because they need it now. They might need it, a year from now, and it's taking 4 to 6 months to get stuff. So they're ordering it now. And I'm like, oh, you're just making the shortages fucking worse.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's still empty shelves in the supermarkets. Like here and in San Diego, you'll walk past like, here's the flavor of ramen I don't want. Here's the flavor I do. Empty shelf, that kind of thing. And it's weird. I developed a taste for ramen in college. I actually like it instead of thinking of it as poor people food, but whatever.
Our 5-year-old doesn't really eat. He has an aversion to eating. It's been an issue we've been dealing with, but what we do is we supplement his diet with Pediasure. And there used to be, when you went to the store, there was like 4 or 5 flavors. Since the pandemic, it's down to 1, sometimes 2. And it's just like the other flavors just never came back again.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, here's, and I have noticed the same thing. I noticed it first actually with toilet paper. When toilet paper started going back on the shelves, instead of like 75 varieties of toilet paper, they narrowed that shit down, no pun intended, to to about 5 or 6.
You said face value before talking about toilet paper, and I was going to correct you and say ass value. But
but the funny thing is, you think about it, we have created the illusion of abundance with fake choices.
yeah,
So, and this is the reason why there's so much waste in the stores, because we have to have 75 different kinds of apples and all this, and so what ends up happening is the shit doesn't, half of it doesn't get eaten and it goes to waste. So it's kind of a necessary correction. Unfortunately, it sucks when it's the one you liked is the one that went away, and I've had the same problem happen to me.
There are a couple of places now, like towns, where any food that is about to spoil or is about to go past its expiration date or whatever, and it's still good past its damn expiration date, you have to give it to the homeless. Legally, you have to.
I like that.
So
I like that. Yeah, because I mean, there's so much fucking waste. So John Oliver did a great expose on that, about just how much waste and how the stores stock up because they want the shelves filled. I'm like, well, why don't you just make the shelves smaller and have less stuff on it and don't waste as much? But again, we shop with our eyes, right? And there's this psychological effect. So we see bounty and it makes us feel good, but it's bad for us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are still some things that I can't get that I really loved pre-pandemic, and it's irritating. I mean, I can't say it's pissing me off, but it's disappointing. You know, but like to describe it to some people, they go, "Oh my God, look how privileged you are," and I'm like, "No, no, no." I'm just like, "Oh man," and move on. Okay, it's not fucking anyway.
No, we had. I mean, the abundance. If you travel the world, you come back to America, or when I lived in the UK is just as well. I mean, you go into a supermarket and it was abundant. There was all the shelves are always full. In most parts of the world, it's never been like that. There's always been scarcity depending on where you go. And I just find it kind of depressing because the powers that be, the oligarchy that we live under, they have figured us out. The scarcity doesn't harm them. They can control what we consume via scarcity, for example. So I think this is here to stay. I think this isn't going to go away anytime in the next decade.
See, the thing is, though, is that I mean, a certain amount of that's probably true, but like some of the shortages, like I said, in my industry, it's actually costing them money because things are not getting done that they want and would make them money if it got done.
Sure.
So that's where my frustration is. I'm like, I just want to, build shit and make things
just
work.
Want to build shit and make money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why not?
Exactly. Build shit, make some money, make things work, and make the world better. I mean, I'm doing a lot of, we're bidding on a lot of public works projects for water and wastewater, for infrastructure stuff. And obviously sorely needed because our infrastructure sucks balls. It's like big old wet donkey balls. Mm-hmm. And so it's nice to see. And this actually, a lot of these projects are coming out of the infrastructure bill that was passed, like almost a year ago. So that money is actually starting to get, go to good use.
Well, I mean, we have talked about this before, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I mean, I get really frustrated because I keep seeing, thankfully, I mean, I think whoever's doing the tweets for the White House right now is on the ball with this, because every time someone like Ted Cruz or whatever comes out and says, "Oh, I got this money for Texas to do blah, blah, blah," like, you voted against this, Ted, they're straight out there with it. And I think that kind of thing is good, but it's not sufficient. But at least they're not letting them get away with these lies like the news companies blatantly do. You know,
Well, that sort of goes back to something I was saying before, where it's like a lot harder to put one over on people now that we have this ready access to information. Like, I think a lot of why, say, I mean, I hate to bring up the Nazis, but, you know, back in World War II, a lot of why they were able to get people to go along with it is just they could control the flow of information a lot better than you can now. And so, you know, you get these politicians who lie their asses off, and immediately the internet is pointing out all of the inconsistencies in the shit they say. It makes it a lot harder to get a hold on people when you can do that.
But does it make a tangible difference when we catch the liar lying? How many lies did Trump tell and he still did what he did? How many lies does, I'm going to use Ted Cruz again because he seems to be the second best liar right now. He just tells endless lies, even if they do call him on it. It's just, you know, partisanship and blah, blah, blah. And they just completely.
Well, sure. I mean, like, because we discussed last time the difference between like the left wing and the right wing mindset, where there's a lot more party cohesion, there's a lot more loyalty on the right, where even when they know that the people leading them are full of shit, you have to follow anyway. You know, even when you know that you're not on the right side, party loyalty matters so much. Where on the left, you get a lot more, I hate to say free thinkers because some of us aren't, but you get a lot more, a lot less homogeneity that you get on the right. You have a lot more diversity on the left. You have a lot more people with competing ideas. And so it's probably harder to put one over on a liberal or a lefty than it is on someone on the right who has just a completely different way of looking at the world, where loyalty matters more to them, where critical thinking matters more on the other side. And I'd like to believe that the access to information that we have now makes the critical thinkers like less easy to fool, to make them go along with shit, you know?
For the most part. But you know, the other thing too, I mean, because the left is more diverse, you know, it's easier to become proprietary about, you know, I mean, if you think about it, you know, Kate, you and I, we've screamed at each other. We're not that far apart on what we think, but yet, you know, it's enough that we get irate over it.
We're passionate people.
You know, and we're not the only ones. I mean, a lot of other people do too. And so it's very hard. And so the left is more likely, I found, to like, they'll feel, oh, these what are actually fairly minor differences are intractable, and I'm gonna go one side or the other says fuck you and walks away, and which is unfortunate because they, like you said, they don't. They have no problem being lockstep and being like robots, because that's there's a guy I used to do work for, you know, in the game industry, and he's right wing like a lot of people in the game industry unfortunately are, and to him, like, disagreement meant disloyalty, and disloyalty was like one of the cardinal sins was to be disloyal. And of course, that's not what loyalty is. If you and I are,
that's obedience, not loyalty.
Right? That's obedience. If you and I are simpatico, then you should be able to tell me you think I'm wrong, and vice versa. Even if we get heated over it, we should be able to do that, because. And I was trying to explain to a friend of mine who he had kind of got wrapped up in some of this a few years ago. He's not like this way anymore, but he was kind of going along with the right wing talking point that if you criticized Israel, that you were against Israel's the policies of the government, that you were anti-Israel, or you want Israel to be our friend. I'm like, well, no. Here's the thing: if you're my friend and I'm doing something unwise, I would hope you would say to me, hey, Joe, like if I said, hey, I want to lose weight, this is my way to lose weight. And like, oh, I still didn't lose weight, I'm going to try it again. Oh, it's still not losing weight. You know, that you would take, hey, Joe, smacking yourself in the head, probably not going to fix the problem. Well, maybe if I pass out and stop eating, but, you know.
I don't know. I might point a camera at you and put you on YouTube.
Well, you might. but you get my point, that you would hope an actual friend which should be able to say, hey, I support you as a person or as a country or a company or whatever. However, what you're doing is detrimental to you and possibly to others, and I'm suggesting you don't do that. That doesn't mean you're anti that person or that organization or group. But that's how a lot of people take it.
I don't want to change the subject, but I wanted to address something that Galen said in the private chat, and I don't want to derail what's being said. So you can ignore this completely, but this is for Galen. Hey, Galen, did you hear that when Biden was speaking to the UN, he had mentioned that it's wrong for a nation state to take land from another nation by force? The Israeli delegation got up and left.
I did not see that. I've been really sick, but I'll
Wow.
have to go back and look at that.
Yeah, look it up.
I mean, isn't that just like it's beyond a tacit admission? That's an admission that they thought he was talking about them, which means they obviously feel guilty about
I
it.
would have thought he meant like Russia,
Guilty
Ukraine.
is the wrong word, but yeah.
I think it was pretty well known that he was really talking about Russia.
Right.
Apparently the ambassador left.
I have these arguments on Twitter, unfortunately, far too often because, I support Palestinian liberation and to the greatest possible degree. And the conversation has moved so far from where it was, say, back when in the 90s. And I get really pissed off because, don't get me wrong, I'm not lionizing the guy at all. But Yitzhak Rabin, when the right-wing Israeli guy assassinated Yitzhak Rabin, things turned to shit and have gotten worse ever since then. And I mean, like I say, Rabin had a history, right? And I'm not lionizing the guy, but I mean, he was actually on the job in the 90s anyway, of trying to turn things around in a way that no one else in my lifetime ever did. And I get really pissed off that some basically fanatic on the right of Israeli politics assassinated the prime minister and got what they wanted for it.
Well, and in fact, it goes even further. I'll say it's one of the worst days of the 20th century because of what happened after. Because we were really heading toward what could have been a lasting peace, and also was important because he was really kind of the only one that could do what he did because he was one of their greatest defenders. During the various Arab-Israeli wars, he was one of the top guys, and so he had the credibility. He could be the one that could go and say, "Hey, look, I'm not going to give away the store. I'm not going to give away the homeworld to the Palestinians because I fought for this country several times and I've defended this country. I have credibility." And that was like, only Nixon could go to China. Nixon was a well-known anti-communist. So therefore, no one was going to say he was going to be soft on China, but he could at least go talk to them.
I understand. Sorry, just real quick. And I understand the point you're making about credibility with Rabin, but I mean, wasn't he partly responsible for what happened in Sabra and Shatila? So credibility is perhaps the wrong word to use. What were you going to say?
No, but with the Israelis.
Well, I'm going to go with what Paul says. Rabin was, an utter bigot. I mean, he was an atrocious war criminal. Awful on any level and you could put forth. I disagree also that we were anywhere close to peace. I mean, that's still an apartheid state, as racist as anything possible. I mean, people are cut off because of their religion and skin tone, drinking water. I mean, it's a horrific place.
But that's just it, though, Galen. That stuff
close.
That stuff was starting to change under Rabin.
I'm saying I dissent. I think it was so incremental. It seems like nothing to me.
Right,
I think the reason that people like me and Joe sort of think of it as an area of progress is because everything that happened before that and everything that happened since then was never as good as that. So for me, it's the best it's ever been in my lifetime. Having said that, it was so far short of what needed to happen. But we have come so far since then because back then the conversation was dead square on a two-state solution. That is almost completely off the table now. And they don't want a one-state solution either. They won't admit it, but what they want is slow genocide. They're happy to take 200 years to do it, but that's what they're going to fucking do unless we stop them.
Right. Exactly. And my thing is, yes, was it not enough? Absolutely. So this is the thing. We never get 100% solutions, at least not right away. So progress in the right direction is still progress in the right direction, even if it's a long way off from where you have to be. And yeah, I'll take the big steps when I can get them. But if I'd rather take a step of any size than no steps.
If you mean we as in stopping them as the U.S., I dissent. If you say we as us as dissenters, as individuals, I can agree we need to step up our voices. But as far as the U.S., we're part of that genocide as Americans.
The U.S. doesn't do it. Who does?
Most of the world watching, really, because I mean,
We ate it and we back it 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, though. If U.S. doesn't stop it, who does?
The U.S. has religious reasons for supporting what's going on there. Remember, a lot of our government, we were talking about it before, a lot of our government is run by dominionists who believe that Jews need to turn
so
to
we can just like openly say out loud, though, that therefore it is completely illegitimate, because that is not an argument, It's the same illegitimacy. I mean, the state of Israel exists, and I'm not saying it can't exist, but I am saying the argument that they use that God gave them that land is just not credible. That's not an argument.
It's not even that. I don't think anybody gives a shit if God gave them that land anymore. From the U.S.'s point of view, they need to have that land, whether God
I
gave
agree with that to the point that it exists. I think the argument for that, is decades ago, and we should move on. It's there. We need to exist. We need to move on with the reality that it's there.
Point is if it doesn't go the way they want it to go, it won't bring about the prophecy. That is what it is. U.S. engagement in Israel, and their policy in Israel is based on prophecy. Prophecy being the Jews need to go to Israel, to go back to Jerusalem to bring about the end times. That's the U.S. policy.
I partially agree with Raven, partially only, that there's a segment that thinks that. However, there's another perspective. I don't think Joe seems to agree with me. Maybe he does, but and it's fine. It's cool. Joe and I have gone 100 rounds on everything. So, is that I personally also want to say to Bionic Dance that what good is the use of American military force in the world? So I'm like, fuck that. But to finish, I know, but I'm putting forth to this argument that Israel is also there as a place, as partially understand it. It's many things, a vassal state where America can conduct military exercises without it's going in there fully. And Israel, it's not always just Israel acting unilaterally. There's a lot of exercises. The U.S. does stuff with Saudi Arabia too. Those both are connected and an alliance. The U.S. is an alliance with Israel and Saudi Arabia. We're interconnected with our economies. Even Israel is to Saudi Arabia. I don't think anyone could even fucking dispute that. And we have conducted military exercises in that area through Israel. We ate it with military weapons from the U.S., with money, everything. It's just a flowing through a profit of the military-industrial complex.
Well, I agree on a macro level with Biden that you shouldn't go around taking other people's shit. I mean, that's just pretty rude to do it, but the thing is that it's much more complicated than that, obviously. But and of course, the United States, we're starting to slowly wake up to the fact that we probably shouldn't have done it to the Native Americans either. Although that brings up a question I've been wanting to ask for a good long time. How many generations does a people have to live in a place before we can call them the natives?
I don't know. I've had this argument so many times in the past because, for example, when I lived in the UK, my kids were born in the UK. So as far as I was concerned, it's okay to call them British. They're half American. That's a little bit different. If my kids were born in Japan, would they be Japanese? Their nationality would be Japanese. But would you consider them to be Japanese? I think most people would not. Right? So
it would be their nationality, not their ethnicity.
Right. And that's a line that some people aren't prepared to draw for whatever reason.
Well, it's interesting. I had a discussion. I used to work with a woman who is from Jordan, and I wanted to get her take on it because we obviously we don't get a lot of we don't hear a lot of opinions from people, Middle Easterners, non-Israeli Middle Easterners. And so her take on the Palestinian thing, she goes, They want a homeland. What are they talking about? They have one. It's called Jordan. They're all over the place. We can't get rid of them. That was exactly literally that's word for word what she said. Because 70% of the population of Jordan is Palestinian.
Right.
And so it's kind of funny. So like, what's Jordanian then now? I mean, Jordanian, the prior indigenous culture of Jordan doesn't really exist much.
Well, the talking point right now, and to my great chagrin, the United States diplomatic corps seems to be in line with Israel on this one. I mean, they're not even in Israeli discourse right now. There's an overt drive, and it's been going on for some time to delegitimize the term Palestinian as a descriptor towards a people. They say there's no such thing as a people called Palestinians. And I've had arguments back and forth with people because they want to get you bogged down in all these historical arguments and the movement of peoples over the different political machinations over the past 150 years, say, for example. My attitude is really simple. Language exists so that people can communicate with each other. And if I say Palestinians and you know the group of people I'm talking about, the word is serving its purpose, whether you think it's valid or not. It's serving its purpose.
I brought that up earlier where I was having that Twitter argument with someone where I said, what word will you accept that represents this concept? And they refused to answer. It's the same thing.
Right. At which point the discussion's over, because if they're not going to have an honest discussion with you, you can't have a discussion with them.
After a few tries, that's what happened. I said, well, if you're not going to, I can't communicate with you. So bye-bye. Best of luck in your future endeavors. So,
This I want to elaborate a little bit on the point I just made, though, about this drive that's going on in Israeli discourse to eliminate the term Palestinians as a descriptor towards those people. Because if you can eliminate them as being considered a people, then it's not genocide if you get rid of them. This evil as fuck what's going on right now. It's coming from all sorts of different angles. I can't stand watching it. It's pissing me off. And it's been going on my whole life. This is the thing. When I first started becoming aware of like international politics, I was like 11 or 12, and there was always something going on in the Middle East.
What got me started thinking about that, because I'm a little bit younger, was reading Bloom County. Was where I first started learning about some of the crap going on in that part of the country. Anyway.
Right. I do want to sort of end the show reasonably soon, but there's something that we haven't really talked about right now. And Michael, you've been silent for far too long, and I want to bring you in on this point because you sent me a couple of TikTok videos that you have harvested from real Russians who are very, very worried about like the basically the conscription that's going on over there to fight in the war against the Ukraine. And without going too much into the machinations about the war, I want to talk just specifically about this kind of conscription that's going on, because it's not just that they're calling up a draft. I mean, they're literally shanghaiing protesters off the streets, and the net they're throwing is pretty wide. I mean, what's your take on it, Michael?
It was already bad before this announcement, but what has them horrified is that now the state media is about to start calling this a war against Ukraine, where that terminology wasn't used before. They were, pulling the wool over their eyes, even though they knew that they already knew, But now openly they're calling it a war effort, and they are drafting 300,000 people. Now all the Moscow flights are booked out of the country for months. Anybody who gets caught trying to dodge this draft gets put in prison for 10 years. And prior to this, they were already conscripting people into the military for things such as being homosexual. So all the people that are in their army really don't have their heart in fighting for them. It's a really horrible thing. So when you see those deaths mount up, those are people who didn't believe in fighting in that war in the first place, and they're still getting killed.
I saw an article recently about people learning how to break their arm to keep themselves out of the army. Like they actually have been breaking their own limbs to not get drafted.
And reportedly, Putin is no longer in Moscow. He is. I don't want to say he fled.
He's in the $1 billion house.
He retreated to a palace in the forest where it can serve as his command center,
Right.
where he's hidden and protected.
So that's scary for a number of reasons.
Yeah.
I said it actually on Twitter, and I've said it a couple of times. I'm a little surprised that no one's put one in the back of his brain pan, whether it's a covert op from some other country or one of his own. The man seems dangerous enough that someone would try.
I think that's why he. I think that's why he retreated to a secluded palace. He put himself in as safe as he can, I guess, situation where he can command what's happening on the ground.
I said this to Kate on another forum, but I mean, could you imagine the security concerns of Vladimir Putin? I mean, how do you trust anybody if you're that guy?
He's got to have food tasters.
Also,
He does. He
Go ahead.
has a
No?
ridiculously long table that he meets people at. Like ridiculously long, so that they can't like possibly spray him with any germs or any little oils of things that he might have put on his own political enemies. It has a ridiculously long table.
Now, with all of that, wouldn't he have to at some point, with a little self-reflection, go, you know what, maybe I'm the villain of this story. If I have to protect myself that much from other people, aren't I the bad guy?
But he doesn't care though. That's the whole problem.
It doesn't care. So there's also rumors out of China that are not being backed up by mainstream media or what most people would consider reputable sources, but other sources are flooding with rumors that Xi Jinping has been put under house arrest by the military, and that there has been a successful coup. And so far from Beijing, it's silence. So,
yeah, could be propaganda. Well, it's hard to know. And this goes back to what Kate was saying a while ago.
What makes it scary is the silence, though.
Right. But I mean, well, I suppose because they could deny it straight away if there was anything to deny, right? But like, I mean, again, we're talking about a repressive regime. It might be in their interest to have a little bit of uncertainty out there. Do you know what I mean? And this goes back to what Kate was saying before, though. About, I mean, I when it comes to things I see on the internet, I have to have like 2 or 3 sort of like, I'm not going to take it just because I saw one thing on the internet. Never again. You know what I mean? I've fallen for it too many times in the past where you see something, you retweet it or you post it elsewhere or whatever. And then, 24 hours later, you find out your source was, bullshit, basically.
Well, it's like one of the things somebody had sent me a thing saying, "Oh, China, there was a coup, blah blah blah. This happened," so I Googled it. And I mean, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of sources. I don't know what their sources are. It may all be the same source, but no large mainstream media is reporting it. Nobody there's no Associated Press. None of that kind of stuff. It's all
that would basically imply that because for the mainstream media, I mean, at least they have some supposed standards where they have to have multiple corroboration of a story before they can, run with it. And they need to have some kind of official statement, even if it's an unofficial no comment. They can't just like run without some kind of official, an attempt at an official confirmation or denial.
Well, I've made it my own personal procedure, my standard operating procedure, where if I'm arguing with somebody and they make a claim that I need to dispute, I will look for multiple sources that say what I think they ought to say, because I've had too many times where I find one source that says what I think ought to be so, and I will post it and quote it and everything, and they'll flood me with 5 or 6 others that say the opposite thing. So I make sure to have multiple sources that are backing me up. And I mean, on the one hand, I hate having to do that. On the other hand, it's exactly the right thing I should be doing.
Right. So, like if there's like a major event that happens somewhere, and like people are like, oh, this happened, and you look it up. If like even if Fox News comes and says that it happened, I will say that that is a reputable. Even though I hate Fox News, they're reputable enough on major events to say, yeah, this probably happened.
If it was an earthquake, yeah, but if it was anything political, I don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of the things I was talking about would be either political or scientific. The
Right.
scientific is easier to prove, but
But
still.
if it's like a major event, not like Joe Biden disses Coca-Cola because he's drinking a Pepsi, that But I mean, if it's a major event, I mean that the whole political thing kind of disappears because
There's always spin.
Well, I mean, January 6th is an example of
It's like the whole, so and so came in first, but they'll report the guy who came in first, like on another source says coming in next to last. If it's a 2-person race kind of thing. So it's like, our guy was the runner up, and this person came in next to last. That kind of thing where they'll put a spin on it. So it's like if it's Fox News, I'm taking it with a grain of salt and looking for another source because they're gonna spin it in their favor.
Between spinning it and not reporting it, and that's kind of my point here. If they're reporting it, I don't give a shit what spin they put on something. I can remove spin and add spin all I want. Are they reporting the story as being a thing that happened in the world?
Well,
They can be political or non-political, or religious or whatever they want on it. Are they reporting?
But they might spin it in such a way that it seems so insignificant that it's like, well, we have to report this because other people are talking about it, but here's why they're making too big a deal out of it, or here's why it actually favors us instead, or here's why you shouldn't think about it. There are ways of spinning things to make people put it out of their minds.
But I mean, even if they're spinning it a certain way, if you see a story and you're like, okay, this seems a little bit fishy, and you go look for it, you look for multiple sources from different viewpoints, even if they're biased. If you get multiple viewpoints of that story, you can at least extrapolate something from all those different viewpoints. You can at least get something from it,
There's one very important part of what you said, though, that makes a huge difference, and that's the word if. If you go looking, a lot of Fox viewers won't bother.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing, is this rumor about what's happening in China, not even Fox News reported it. So it's one of those kinds of Google Weekly, whatever, reported on it. Holy crap news reported on it. Holy shit, did you see this? Reported on it.
So we'll see, basically. I do want to dial back around to Russia.
Wait, just one thing real quick. I mean, because absolutely nothing happened today in sector 83 by 9 by 12.
I get that reference. Right. I just wanted to dial back to Russia for a second, because while we're talking about spin and everything like that, you got to realize as well that Russia has, to a pretty high degree, some state-controlled media. And so spin there is a completely different flavor to it. Maybe not completely different, but different enough. And Michael, you've been following what's been going on over there. I mean, is their media basically giving them like World War III scenarios, or what's going on with that?
Well, there's definitely a shift in the way that they're talking about it. There's definitely a shift, and it's made the Russian peoples feel like this is very, very real. And those that are living in major cities, they can see the protests that aren't being covered by their mainstream media. Their protests are as large as anything that they've ever seen.
Right.
And they're, they might be hauling like less than 1% of the protesters away, but they can't handle all of them. And the people are realizing, holy shit, we're coming out in numbers about this. So they have a very big problem on their hands.
Do you think that the conscription issue, and especially where they're actually shanghaiing people, and it's not even a process, but it's more of an abduction, do you think that has the potential to be the first domino that leads to the ultimate domino of Putin being dislodged from his position?
Not certain. It looks like it's definitely unfavorable with the people. There's people that are getting these conscription letters that are outside of even what the state media is saying is the bounds for being drafted. Like they say 35 and under, and people who are 45 are getting these letters,
Right.
And so people who are the wrong person are getting letters, and they're just basically trying to snatch up everyone.
I just want to say, ciao to Zoom. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I'm gonna be headed for bed here. So, have a good night, everyone.
All right.
Hey,
Have
take care.
fun.
Peace, man.
Thanks.
Don't get horribly burned alive by any monsters or anything.
I just wanted to answer my own question. I don't really think that. I mean, I would love to think that this kind of thing will lead to a social revolution that would ultimately end with the ousting of the dictator and some kind of a better person installed. I don't see that happening. I think we're about to see one of the most brutal years or end of the years we've ever seen, because what's going on in Iran right now, with women resisting wearing the hijab because the cops, the morality police, killed somebody for having arrested her for showing too much hair. And so Iran has been, I mean, for Iran, they've been tolerating these protests in the sense they haven't done a major crackdown, which they're totally capable of doing and will do. And I think they're just biding their time and waiting for the right moment. I think the same thing's going to happen in Russia. And basically, I worry that the same thing might happen here, after the elections. I mean, I just don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to interfere with the elections over here. And I think that's going to cause a lot of friction. And I don't think there's enough sort of preparation for this potentiality,
Well, I feel like I'm nice and safe up here in Bernie Sanders country, so to the rest of you,
If I were to get on my conspiracy theory horse and start doubting everything that I'm seeing, I would say it would be advantageous to China right now to not pick up the phone for their buddy Putin and pretend like their leader is in house arrest and that they're being overthrown. And it would be advantageous for Iran to let a social movement be everything that they can handle right now. And they can't help out with crushing Ukraine right now. Sorry, Putin. Even though we'd like to be allies, we've got our own problems.
I don't think any of them
have their own problems.
Right.
And nobody is able to be called upon right now. Putin's very alone.
I don't think that's far fetched. I can actually see that that could very well be a reality where they're going, oh, I can't. I got a thing. I got a thing.
Yeah, the baby's crying. The baby's crying. I got to go feed the baby.
So while we're sort of on the subject of coups and taking over places and shit, what's going on with China and Taiwan?
Well, it's hard to say since we don't know what's happening with China.
Well, but I mean, like, there was this whole thing that I keep hearing about where, like, now they're trying to take over or something, Marshall. I don't know.
I mean, the Chinese mainland has always had a claim on Taiwan. That's always been the case. Way back in the day when communist China was still considered Red China, Taiwan was what the United States recognized as China, and Red China was not really officially recognized as China. And so that we did our business with China, which was Taiwan, for a long time. And then I guess it must have been in the 90s or maybe late 80s when we started easing relationships with China, where China was, but now they've always had this claim on Taiwan, basically. The thing is, Taiwan has been an independently run entity now for what, 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, maybe even. It's been a while. And I don't see why, they have a level of democracy there. I'm not really very well educated on how it operates specifically.
Well, hold on. Because what I meant was I've been seeing a lot of news reports about something ramping up between them and China.
Well, because there's always been a risk that China will try to claim Taiwan back under its own sovereignty. That's been that
Okay,
that has always
but
existed.
recently,
That has always existed. Far
there's
back
been
as I can
something new going on over there.
What was there though? This is my point. Is it just them taking this issue and stirring the pot and saying, "Hey, look over here at this thing. This is potentially going wrong."
See, but there's a one China policy that's been in place since Nixon. And recently, a lot of American politicians have been ignoring that. And that's been causing friction.
Right. Yeah. Basically, because like Pelosi went over to Taiwan and gave a speech, and so that pissed off the Chinese, and they were basically making additional veiled, not all that veiled threats about that they might do something about it. They didn't, but that was may have been what you heard, that because they were basically getting pissed off, and they were implying that they were going to take action about it.
It's a lot of saber rattling because of the position a lot of U.S. politicians are making, and it's the one China policy, and I think to put that as policy for the U.S. government, I always thought that was a mistake. But it has been what has been the ruling thought forever.
Well, I really wish people would stop saber rattling just for a little while, a couple of years. It seems like everything's on the verge of some big honkin' war, and I'm getting tired of it.
Yeah, I think we're all tired of it. Yeah. As far as I'm concerned, I just mentioned this in the private chat, but I mean, U.S. interventionism has gone way over the top in general, especially since the turn of the century. And unless we're literally stopping a genocide, I can't see any argument for getting militarily involved, unless our own sovereignty is at stake, or unless we're stopping a genocide. That's my own opinion.
We don't even stop genocide; we cause it.
But I think what we're talking about is what ought to be right now.
Yeah.
Stay the fuck out of being an imperialist genocidal state. That's what I say.
That'd be nice.
Well, I mean,
I'm fully in support of us not doing that.
We are not going to, because we are, and merit exceptionalism, which is as racist as anything, means we know better, and we're going to go do everything and propaganda, and people will always fall for it because people are stupid.
Well, I mean, what's going on with Taiwan right now, like I said, I think it's a storm in a teacup. I think it's look at this over here because we don't want you to look at that over there. I think it's just one of those things. This issue is just being brought up because it's a potential problem that's always existed, and therefore they can say, hey, this is legitimate. This is a legitimate situation. And I also think every time there's a new president or a relatively new president, certain international actors will sort of test the water and sort of see, where their resolve is. That happens every time there's a new president.
I don't know. Sometimes I do wonder what would happen if the United States did become non-interventionist and just said, okay, the rest of the world can fuck itself blind for a decade. Let's see what happens. I mean, just as an experiment. Like, I'd like to be able to see it happen and then rewind 10 years if we didn't like it.
Well, then we wouldn't be fucking the world. That would be great. We wouldn't be going on fucking every country around the world. That'd be great.
But I mean, at the same time, what would all of them do to each other when all of a sudden some of them are like, wow, we don't have the U.S. backing us anymore?
U.S. economy is tied into, it's a global economy. To pull back from the rest of the world and to be completely
I meant militarily.
Well, would we just cause chaos around the globe?
Good.
I don't agree with good, Galen, but I do agree.
I do. I
do agree with you that we should get the fuck out of. I mean, we've got over 100 military bases in different countries around the world. And if that isn't a sign of imperialism, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? And so as far as I'm concerned, we could probably pull back from a good 70% of those and not notice the difference in terms of our geopolitical position.
That's true.
And to Raven, to clarify with Raven, the U.S. drives its dollar with trading oil with Saudi Arabia. We need to not do that to run our economy.
Right.
Okay. That is fucking awful.
Well, I think Saudi Arabia, like other actors in the world, I mean, it's not just limited to the Saudis, but like, I I think and I don't know how relevant the number might be now because it's 20 years later. But in Bowling for Columbine, no, it's not Bowling for Columbine. It's the other one. Fahrenheit 9/11. Michael Moore found out that the Saudi royal family owns approximately 8 or 9% of the American economy. If they decided to pull out of everything, they could crash our economy in 24 hours.
They could, but it's kind of the same reason why China doesn't, because China's economy is inextricably linked with our own. So while they, on the one hand, have a lot of economic leverage over us, if they were to crash our economy, it would be very bad for them.
But the Saudi royal family is so rich that they have not even started spending the money they made back in the 70s, right? I mean, they're worth like something like almost $2 trillion. Right, they're so insulated from any economic impact of anything they did. You know what I mean?
No, I mean we spend more than that per year. That's less than our annual budget. That's enough. That's chump change.
It's chump change
On a national level. That's chump change.
My point is, if they dumped everything that they owned, there wouldn't be anybody that could pick up the slack, and the stock market, at least, if not the whole economy, would crash.
But again, where are they invested? They are invested in that same stock market.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if they decide to cash in their chips, you know what? We're done. We're just done.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work. You know, that's not the way economies work.
I understand, but you're thinking in terms of sustainability. If their goal was to fuck us up,
but my point is, it would fuck them up too.
I get that, but
no, you don't. Because like, they could do this thing. They would. It's like it would be like it's like basically they're gonna shoot us through their own head, and the bullet's gonna come out and hit us in the face. Yeah, it'll hurt us, but it's gonna kill them. That's what I'm getting at. That's what you're missing. That's literally what you're talking about.
Yeah. And that's why, like, when people say, and I do think U.S. non-interventionism is a good thing, and I do think that we are overly involved in way too many things we shouldn't be. But the idea that we can just pull back and just stop, but that's a fantasy.
An isolationist U.S. is just as bad as an interventionist U.S.
Yeah, and it would cause global chaos. And I don't think global chaos is good.
No, I think we should do fewer things than we do, but I think not doing anything is reckless.
So, real quick, I'm tired and thirsty, and Xander's bitching for his nightly handful of dry food. So I think I'm going to make like a baby and head out. This has been fun. And I'll catch you evil geniuses later, all right?
That was an image.
Have a good one, Kate. Thanks for hanging out. Right on. I should probably end the show as well.
There is chaos around the world, Galen. That is true. That's not the same as global chaos.
I disagree.
Sorry, we don't have nations just falling and collapsing on a daily basis. I mean, we are actually living in one of the most peaceful times in human history. Hunger and disease and war is down around the globe. This is actually one of the best times to be alive in human history.
As shitty as it is right now.
Yes, it is. As shitty as it is, it's actually one of the best times. So, I mean,
that's terrifying when you put it that way, though, because as shitty as
exactly true. Well, if we were to pull, if the U.S. were to say, you know what, fuck all y'all, we're gonna stay home and do our thing and fuck the rest of you people. The chaos that would be on the world.
We'll put it this way: we were isolationist after the stock market crash. Basically, during the Depression, we became an isolationist nation, and that did not go well for anybody.
Sure.
Like again, there's a lot of. I'll tell you, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we should not have gotten involved in, without a doubt. But the idea that we should be completely hands off, I think it would not be smart either.
It's all the thing is, for me, and maybe I'm too much of a flaming liberal, but I mean, to me, right, it's all tied up together. I.e., U.S. hegemony is tied in with white supremacy. If you want to tear down white supremacy, guess what's going to come down with it?
No shit.
See, here's the difference. Do you remodel the house? Do you renovate the house, or do you burn the house down?
I'm with you, Joe. I'm not in favor of burning the house down. We totally agree on that. As much as people talk about a revolution and how you have to burn everything down and start over again, my attitude about a revolution is, you first. Who are you prepared to kill? What are you prepared to endure? What are you prepared to sacrifice? If you're not prepared to answer those questions, talking about revolution is inappropriate.
It's irresponsible. And to be quite frankly, if we look at the history of revolutions, ours, and this may be the reason why so many Americans say that stupid shit about revolution, is in relative terms, ours went relatively well compared to most. Most revolutions after they depose whoever's in, the revolution fails at some point after because they become despotic.
There's a series of revolutions that usually happens.
Right.
Right.
I mean, to what degree, though? I mean, again, talking about the U.S. imperialism. I mean, just taking Central and South America as an example. How many of those repeated successions in government experience are because we fucking interfered the whole time?
Well, we did. We did, and so did others. It was not in a vacuum.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I mean, let's call a spade a spade. I mean, we fucked with a lot of the South American countries and installed dictatorships which we knew were brutal and
the world. I mean, where kind of sits right now is an honest broker, if we can find one, needs to be able to sit down and say, what are we involved in? What should we not be involved in? And what can we get out of without causing a lot of harm?
I'll take that job.
It needs to happen. It's just, will it happen?
I want to put forth one thing to all of those is that I'm not calling for revolution, but I'm not in any way support of the institution or with anybody else who's an institutionalist. That's what I call a lot of others, probably people in here. To me, I'm not insulting anyone. I'm just saying other people are more with this institution trying to work within. I am very much dissentful to it, and respectfully so. And I have a different perspective, but I'm not also calling for revolution to burn anything down. I already think the house is burned of what you think it is. I just have a different perspective. I think it's just a very corrupt, total
I wouldn't
house of
necessarily
shit.
disagree with the idea that the house is already on fire. I mean, I could see that the house is on fire. But I mean, we let it burn, or do we do something about it?
But I think it already did burn, and I think that a lot of corrupt forces are in it. I mean, money is everywhere, and there's an illusion of democracy. We live in a civil oligarchy, which is a managed democracy.
But see, here's the problem, though, and I blame a lot of that actually on cynicism and defeatism, because basically, if the reason, here's the thing, I've said this several times before, and I'll continue to say it. There are moneyed interests, which you're referring to. We both know they're there, who spend lots of money trying to convince people that voting is irrelevant, that institutionalism is irrelevant, and participation in our society and whatever vestiges of democracy we have is irrelevant. They wouldn't do that if they were, it wasn't a benefit to them to convincing people of that.
If you vote doesn't matter, they wouldn't be trying so hard to get rid of it.
Okay, Joe, just to clarify points between us, you have very strong views, and I have strong views, and
Absolutely.
I don't want to get like us to go at each other on this. I'm just trying to understand my perspective.
Yeah, I understand.
Like, just get that you have certain ways you clarify for, which you are extremely loud and overbearing at times. And I always listen to you. I just want to say that I am not asking for no one to do nothing. I have my own different ways than you of doing things, of taking action. They're just different than yours.
Well, then I guess what I'm saying is, because I've yet to hear you elucidate what those are. It's easy to point out the problems, but I actually would very much like to know what your solutions are.
I know there are a lot of things. You know how sophisticated and detailed in my views are, but they're way too many. And I feel I've been stating them for years. So that's how I feel. I'm like, what do you mean I haven't? Have you been listening? I've been stating them for years. So that's how I feel. I know you're wrapped in yours, but maybe that's one of the things. There are other perspectives. It's like when I talk about, just so you know, it's like when people talk about Lord of the Rings, I have a friend who's like a scholar in Lord of the Rings, and I oppose Gandalf. He's like, what do you mean? He's leading the forces of good. And I'm like, he has his uses, but he can't see other perspectives. And other people have their own ways of fighting and doing things.
Always.
Yeah.
Well, that's a fair point. Listen, friends, I want to have an after show, so I'm going to wind up the live show now since I think it's a good spot to do it in. And I would like to thank everybody in the comments.
I have one more thing.
Please do your one more thing. Please do your one more thing.
And it's the most important. I wanted everyone on this to answer it. Okay. Joe said something that really philosophical that struck me in this show more than any other show you've ever done. I'd like to hear everybody's answer. Joe talked about how he was frustrated. Me and Joe were both, at the end of the day, we're both very frustrated with the system. We're all, okay, and the world and the warmongering. We all hate that shit. But anyway, at the end of the day, Joe said, what I want to do on this earth. What am I doing? I don't have children. There are things that I want to do with my heart, my love. I know what a loving heart Joe has. I love Joe. And I do. I love you, Joe. And I love everybody on this panel. Just the thing about it is, Joe expressed what he's trying to do on this earth. And I wanted to ask everyone else, in the face of the adversities we each have in our jobs, like Michael, Agent of Doubt, has talked about very frustrations he had. I've heard every person talk about these frustrations that are very personal. I just wondered if anyone in short could. Joe said something that I thought had a lot of great meaning, and it's had me really kind of in reinvigorated me, the show, thinking about my life and what he's trying to do with his time on this earth, what we're doing. That's all. And what is it, in short, like we all talk about all these little subjects, but what are we really, if we had to like sum up our statement on our lives, what are you doing on this earth? Like, I felt like Joe summed it up in like a little short sentence. Like he made this little quip and it was like, oh, that's really good, Joe.
Thank you. Well, that's the thing. 'Cause I mean, because I feel like, yeah, we're all going to die. But I think like the worst life lived is one that when you die, no one notices or cares. Like basically your impact was nothing, that no one, you were just, you could have never have been here and the world wouldn't be any of the worse for you not being there. And that's the most terrible thing that I could imagine. And, you don't have to be famous. You don't have to be, but just the fact that your impact was a positive one. We all have to do bad things too, but that you're a net positive on the world that we lived in, and that at least for a time, somebody cared that you were there.
Right. That's well put. I mean, I don't know that I could say it very much better myself. I mean, I've talked before about this, but I don't think you were on the panel at the time, Galen. But I had my very first existential crisis when I was 9 years old. And basically, a long story short, I came to realize that no matter what you do in this life, you can't possibly matter, because even if you did something amazing like cure the common cold, anyone who remembers your name as being the guy who cured the common cold, that's all they're going to know about you. They're not really going to know anything else about you. So you effectively don't matter. And I had this realization when I was 9. So the struggle for my entire life ever since then has been to matter. And the only way that I can actually see that someone with my experience can matter is to matter to the people who I personally know. It used to be super important to me when I was young to become famous, because I wanted to matter to more people. And part of that was ego driven. There's no doubt about that, But there's also this whole thing about, like Joe said, about wanting to do good. It's almost like it doesn't necessarily matter to me what I have done, as long as people take something good from what I have done, what I have said, who I have been. If take my life as a stone you throw into the pond of life, the ripples that go out, I want to affect people in a positive way. That's the way I look at it. I want my ripples to be good. And they can't all be good. None of us are totally good or bad people. And every single one of us at any given moment in our life might be a bad person, but we could also spend, hopefully the balance is on, we are more often a good person. I know I've hurt loads of people. And if I have any regrets, it's not my actions. I regret the fact that I've hurt people. And insofar as within my possibility, and you can argue all day about whether you can actually make up for the wrong you do or not. But I try to compensate for the things I know are my shortcomings by making up for them by actively trying to realize a sense of honor and virtue, and make that ripple its way out into the people whose lives I affect.
So I am 100% completely good, and anyone who disagrees with me should be killed.
Wow.
It's like the extreme moderates.
All right, so I will answer his question that I am trying to break a system that I see as broken, and it is very entrenched. And right now, on the short term, I'm collecting the credentials that it's taking to be taken seriously. And really, I'm trying to make a better program, a better product than the things that I've worked for in the past, so that I can put them out of business. Because they are broken and they're hurting people. People are dying, and I just want to be a part of a real solution. And I know Joe has supported me in the past when I've been parts of real solutions and really getting involved in things rather than just some of the vapid things that we see in wokeism and liberalism. Where people will take a term, something that's good, and then suck all the goodness out of it, put it on a T-shirt, and not shop at Chick-fil-A on Sunday and fuck Hobby Lobby, but still they're not doing anything to solve the problems, And so I've dedicated myself to one issue where I'm collecting the credentials so that I can create a program that works so well that I put the program that's broken out of business. That's
To just if I could just really add to Mike's point, one of the things that I've taken our side of the political fence to task on is, again, performative stuff. In the same way the right wing, everything the right wing does is performative, but a lot of what the left does is performative too. And like I remember getting in an argument with Shara over the whole thing about Indigenous People Day. I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, tear down the Columbus statues. Nice. Indigenous People Day, yay. But none of that does dick for Indigenous people that are continuing to get fucked over. How about some concrete measures instead of just patting ourselves in the back because look at how advanced and intelligent and woke we are.
Are you saying that tearing down a statue is just a token gesture?
I know it's a silly, it's crazy talk, right? It's crazy talk. But there's so many people that just want to, that when push comes to shove, won't actually take the hard steps to do something. Well, like I got told you how many times have I complained about, people who, self-described, neo-communists. And I'm like, you want to have a syndicate, a worker syndicate? You can build one right fucking now. You and all your like-minded people can get together and build one now. And I will respect the shit out of you for standing up for what you believe. But you don't, because you're full of crap and you won't actually do it. That's actually hard.
What about you, Galen? How would you answer the question?
Okay, this is going to be unexpected. Part of it will be, and then the other half will be like, what the fuck? One, I'm just trying to get healthy so I can continue to live, which has been why I didn't show up. I passed out unconscious last week. I was literally up there waiting to get on, and then I literally fell over in my room and passed out unconscious. So it's like I was out. So, I'm in a medical system, even with healthcare, that bypasses me and fucks me, and they haven't helped me at all in 19 years since my neck injury and having a fractured skull and busted neck. So I've been through it. I spent $10,000 getting MRIs and everything. But on top of that, I have other problems because I have my philosophical works that I have to write on and all these projects. I have books that I have almost written, and I can't even get to that because I have another problem where I have somebody stalking me and doing other things. And I have a criminal matter, which I'm dealing with federal authorities. And, that's like a whole amount of work, which I have to literally contribute tons of work to filling out things and doing things. It's like a job to keep a fucking criminal away from me and my loved ones. So it's just, I have a job there. I got to keep them and myself safe. And then I'm trying to keep myself alive while I'm doing it. And then I can get back to my novels. I can get to literature. I can get to my journalism and my career. and have that and have an actual healthy life and do things and be giving to people, which I like to do. But it's like I have to do all this other shit to get to that.
Right.
And, you know, I still take my time out. Like tomorrow, even though I shouldn't even be driving to the city, I know somebody who, her mother just died. It's her birthday. She's depressed. She needs help. And if she doesn't, she could lose her apartment. So I'm going to go over there and help her out tomorrow. And hopefully I can drive back. I don't know if I will, because if I pass out. So but I have to go help another person, even if because that's the knowledge. If you suffer, you don't want other people suffering as well. You have to be selfless to give a part of yourself in this world. We're all part of this world. I can feel everyone. It's just, we have to be empathetic to that. And we lose too many people too young.
Well, this is the reason why, you know, I've said before, and I'll say again, that, you know, when people have asked me, you know, how did I describe love in one word? And it was sacrifice. And the person I answered that to, they thought that was a negative thing. And I'm like, well, it's not that you're giving something. It's not like you're losing something. It's that it's more of that you're willing to give, and you're more willing to deprive yourself because there's some greater thing that you're giving it to, and so you're part of that. And so but the thing about love is it's not a finite resource that you can run out of. You know, it can grow when you do it for its own sake, you can never run out of it, because if you're not doing it with the expectation. Because when you're doing it with expectation of return, you're not really doing it out of love. You're doing it for the return. But if you actually do it out of love, you can't run out of that.
Right. So be like Raven, who's perfect.
So I didn't answer the question.
You kind of did, but you were flippant. Go ahead and actually answer now.
So, as a trans woman,
You're a trans woman?
I am, yes. Living life, just being me, like Autumn had said, right? Being myself, just living in the US and just being able to exist. Every day, I am changing the world around me just by existing. And I want to continue to do that.
Do you see a day when you can walk around without feeling it?
No.
That's kind of sad in its way.
Mm-hmm.
I suggest moving to California, but I don't think that would fix it.
We'll visit New Orleans one day. I know you will feel better, Raven.
I don't know. Anything down south just seems frightening to me.
Hey, we're not the South. We're New Orleans. That's up above us. That's a different culture. We got French, Spanish. We didn't come from that puritanical shit. You can't put that shit on us in New Orleans.
Right, fair enough. Hey, listen, friends, I think I'm going to wind the show up now, and I want to thank you all for turning out and hanging out. I really appreciate it, as always, and I also want to thank everybody in the chat for being so friendly and mellow tonight. We haven't had serious chat trolls for a long time. I think they gave up on us, and I'm cool with that. The irony is I unblocked all of them as well, but they just don't seem to come back, so that's fine. Anyway, so wave goodbye, everybody, and we'll see you next week on the Dinner Club.